He called me his servant in front of everyone, so I moved out without a word. Now he's broke, and his mom calls me nonstop. Hello, my name is Serena. I'm 27 years old and female. Plus, Albert, 28, my boyfriend of nearly 2 years, if you can call it that. And I had been living together for about 13 months. It isn't a charming oh my god, we moved in for love situation. It was mainly practical. His lease was up, and my apartment was falling apart. And not gonna lie, I thought it would be fun at first, and it was. Until it was not. I'll go back to that. So this weekend, we were invited to this party. They weren't even our buddies. Claire, our landlord's daughter, said, "Hey, you guys are always super chill with the rent stuff. Come hang." I had only met Claire once in person. She prefers group messages for rent reminders over face-to-face interactions. Albert, on the other hand, is all for it, claiming that it will help him network. For what? No idea. He always says that regarding unrelated situations. For example, "Bro, you're not running for office." Anyway, I basically said yes, because I hadn't been out in weeks, and figured there'd be free munchies, and if it became boring, I could leave early. We arrive, and it's more fancier than I expected. Not wealthy fancy, but there is actual glassware, and someone is already playing a Spotify playlist on a Bluetooth speaker that does not sound like it was thrown in a toilet, which is unusual for these scenarios. However, there is an odd atmosphere that comes across immediately. Claire is wearing an expensive-looking velvet top, and everyone seems to know each other except for us. And Albert acts like he's on, I don't know, maybe a talk show or anything. He's all handsy, laughing too loudly, and nudging me as if he wants me to work the room with him. I'm only there for the chips. At first, I'm simply meandering about, telling Claire about how bad our shower pressure is, and how the dryer occasionally makes strange noises. And I notice Albert is already sipping quickly, with the second cup in his hand by the time I complete the first. I make a joke about him working hard on a Saturday, and he simply shrugs and says something about needing to relax after a week of dealing with my nagging. Not even a smile. I'm not sure, but it stung, so I just brushed it off, right? He's always had a caustic response, but lately it's become more direct. I know I might be a little overbearing at times, but if I don't remind him about payments, guess who gets the angry text from Claire? Spoiler. It's not him. So around 30-ish minutes in, I realize I'm basically following him around and cleaning up after him. And he's simply chatting to two individuals I don't recognize. And I heard him say something like, "Oh, Serena's super helpful. Couldn't keep my place clean if she wasn't around." But his tone isn't complimentary. It's as if he is laughing at me. I try to brush it off again, but then he starts ranting about how he never has to worry about rent being late because someone is effectively his accountant and maid. The boys chuckle but aren't sure if it's humorous. I give him this look, and he simply winks at me. I go into the kitchen to fetch another drink, but now I'm upset. Here's where things get worse. I suppose I should clarify that Albert has always been one of those individuals who jokes but is truly cruel. For example, if I call him out, he would say, "Lighten up. It's just a joke. Why are you so sensitive?" But it's always about something I do for him or forget. And he never let it go. He'll remind me of the time I mistakenly shrunk his hoodie like it was a running gag. But if I bring up his story, it's old news. So sure, I spent the entire night watching him become drunk. And I'm texting my friend Avery beneath the table like, "Pause, distract me before I throw a chip at his head." By the time it's maybe 11 p.m., most people are pretty tipsy, but Albert is clearly gone. I try to encourage him to drink some water. He ignores me and begins to speak louder, as if he is performing for the room. Claire comes up and sits next to me, quietly asking, "Is he always like this?" I simply shrug. She appears uneasy. I simply say, "He's had a rough week," which is the most ridiculous excuse. His week was not bad. He left his laundry in the washer, and now everything smells like mildew. That is on him. So, at some point, someone brings up living with partners and the hardest tasks. Albert decides it's time to shine. He rises up, raises his drink as if toasting, and says, "Oh, you want to know what it's like to live with Serena? She's basically my maid with benefits. Good for scrubbing toilets and paying rent, but way too boring for anything else." Yes, he actually shouted that aloud to the entire group. And everybody just freezes. Claire's face is like, "Did he just say that?" A couple of his pals laugh, but largely it's the awkward, "Oh God, please don't drag me into this" laugh. I just stood up. I'm not loud or anything. I just started heading down the hall. Albert, this guy physically grabs my wrist. It wasn't too hard, but it was enough to put me off. And he does this thing where he's like, "Oh look, she's going to leave. Sit down, Serena, come on." And he turns to the group, shaking my handbag in the air and says, "Look guys, she doesn't even have the guts to walk away. Pathetic, isn't she?" People truly laugh. Like, not all of them, but enough to make my face hot. Claire is simply staring at the floor. I pull my wrist away. He doesn't let go at first, but I pull it. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't gentle. And I simply stand there for a moment, unsure what to do, because I don't want to make things weirder. But I'm not going to cry in front of these folks. So I sat back down. I take my purse from his grasp and simply place it on my lap. He's still standing there, trying to garner more chuckles, but it's losing steam. For the following hour, I scarcely moved. I scroll through my phone, pretending to text, but all I'm doing is staring at my lock screen. I'm thinking of all the times I took up his slack, covered for his late payments with Claire, and did his dishes when he forgot. And I feel like a complete idiot because this is the person who, when we first started dating, would bring me coffee in bed, and tell how much he loved me. Now I'm merely the target of his maid jokes. Eventually, a couple of individuals approach me and clumsily inquire about my well-being. I just claim I am all right. I am just weary. Claire sits next to me and gently says, "You don't have to stay." But I just shake my head because I don't want to raise a scene. Plus, Albert is still lingering around the door, as if he is defending it. He's resting against the wall, scrolling through his phone, and I see him type something on Instagram. I know he's probably messaging his group chat about how nuts I am. I really want to leave, but every time I rise up he gets in the way. Claire tries to go past him to let her dog out, but he ignores her and blocks the hallway until she actually pushes him out of the way. He slips a little, nearly drops his phone, and gets angry at her for shoving, but she simply instructs him to move. I see all of this and think, okay, so it's not just me. He's just like this, I guess. He has to be the center of attention at all times, and if he feels ignored, he brings everyone down with him. It's very evident. Now that I'm paying attention, my phone keeps buzzing all night. I receive texts from Avery wondering if I'm okay, and I just answer, "It's fine, I'll call her later." I also got a couple of texts from my mother, which is strange because she never texts this late, but she's asking if I'll come by tomorrow. I almost respond only to have an excuse to go, but I don't want to start something in front of these folks. I know if I go, he'll make a fuss. So I'm simply waiting. Finally, it's approximately 2 a.m. and many are leaving. I get up, take my coat and start towards the door. Albert stands there, arms folded, and just stares at me. I do not say anything. I just walked past him. He mutters something beneath his breath. I couldn't tell what it was, probably more of the same. I step outside and stand on the porch for a minute, trying to regain my breath. Claire comes out to hand me my charger. I left it plugged in. She glances at me as if she's about to say something, but she does not. Just instruct me to text her about the dryer if things become worse. I nod, thank her, and then go. The walk home took about 10 minutes, and I spent the entire time replaying everything in my thoughts. I get to our apartment, go directly to bed, and don't say anything to Albert when he eventually enters, slamming the door behind him. He doesn't even glance at me, he simply kicks off his shoes and walks to the bathroom. I lie there going through Reddit, entering stuff into my notes app to ensure I don't forget anything. So that's how my Saturday night went. I'm so angry I'm shaking. I'm not sure what I should do next, but I'm not going to let this slip. If anyone is interested, there will be a second installment. I just had to get this out. I apologize if this is a disaster. I'm still really angry. Update 1. Okay, I didn't expect I'd be back so quickly, but a lot of you requested the next chapter, and typing it down is stopping me from screaming at my phone. Plus, I believe I'm still too upset to do anything else right now. I'm not sure if this is even readable. I'm operating on about 4 hours of sleep and a large iced coffee, which isn't helping my anxieties. Okay, here we go. So I woke up after that disastrous party, checked my phone, and the alerts were crazy. Albert's parents missed 20 calls. His mom sent him texts with messages such as, Please call us. Are you okay? What's going on with Albert? Can we talk? He even missed FaceTime with his sister. And gal, I just set my phone to quiet and stared at the ceiling for a while. Couldn't deal. Albert was snoring on the couch, which is unusual because he rarely sleeps there unless he's trying to be theatrical. But I believe he passed out after arriving home. I walked past him to fetch some cereal, and he simply said something and rolled over. Oh, and the kitchen was filthy. For example, last week's Solo cups were still available. The sink was full of his dishes. The counter was sticky from when he attempted to make homemade margaritas and spilled sugar everywhere. It looked like someone had hosted a toddler party there and neglected to clean up. I just stared at it thinking, I'm the only one who ever does any of this. Every single time. I can't recall the last time he took out the garbage without being reminded. He always claims he's just lousy at seeing messes, but he notices when I miss a spot. I sat with my coffee, trying to figure out what to do. I could just leave. I may text Claire and inform her that he is now responsible for the rent. I could pack my belongings and stay with my mother or Avery for a few days. But really, I want him to feel it. I want him to have to deal with the mess he's created, both physically and figuratively. I want him to understand how much I care, since he doesn't. He never has. And after last night, I'm not in the mood to become a bigger person. I'm petty, but proud. So I started building a list, literally on my notes app. Everything I paid for. Every time, I paid his portion of the rent. Every bill I put up. Every cleaning supply I purchased. Every weird item he forgot in the shop, I just picked up. The list is long. I scrolled for a whole minute simply looking at the minor details. Toilet paper, paper towels, Swiffer refills, laundry cards, light bulbs, trash bags, that dumb scented candle he enjoys. Literally everything. I even uncovered Venmo receipts from last year, when he couldn't access his account, and I covered his internet usage for 3 months straight. Never repaid me. Just kept saying, I'll get it next time. Correct. The more I went through it, the madder I became. I started photographing things around my apartment. The couch is mine. I bought the TV when I moved in. The plates, silverware, microwave, and linens are literally all mine. Except for the ugly lamp he received from his parents, and the broken kettle that he promises to replace, but never does. I began mentally grouping things together, such as, what can I take without needing a U-Haul? What do I actually care about? What would he even notice is gone? I emailed Avery and asked if I could use her car the following weekend. She just replied with a middle finger emoji and the words, say less. I adore her. I ignored Albert all morning. He walked into the kitchen at midday looking completely dead. He made a huge show of pouring water and massaging his temples. I sat there scrolling through my phone, not trying to be engaged in making him breakfast. He eventually tried to make small talk, stating he couldn't recall anything from the previous night. I just answered, you said enough. He looked perplexed for a moment, then became defensive saying, oh come on, you know I was kidding. Everyone jokes like that. I just gazed at him and did not respond. He got furious and returned to the couch. My mother called again and asked if I was coming to supper. She could see something was wrong, but I only replied I wasn't feeling well. I would text her later. She inquired if Albert was coming, and I chuckled. She didn't push, simply told me to call if I needed anything. I should have told her then, but I didn't want to go through the whole, we warned you about him speech. Parents never let it go. Albert spent the remainder of the afternoon on his phone, surfing TikTok and texting with his friends. I heard him giggle several times, then he became quite quiet. I looked over and saw he was in a group chat with Carson and Andrew, his 2 ride-or-die college mates. They were discussing how awkward last night was. Someone said Claire appeared irritated. Albert simply stated, she'll get over it. She always does. I snapped a screenshot and stored it, just in case. Not for blackmail or anything, just to prove that he knows he's an ass. Around 5 I started packing my belongings. Not everything. Just the little things. My chargers, makeup, favorite hoodie, headphones, novels, and laptop. Things he'd never notice missing. Everything went into my bag and into my car. He didn't even inquire where I was going, he simply told me to bring back some chips if I went by the store. I slammed the door as I exited. I sat in the car for a minute, inhaling. before driving to Avery's to drop off my stuff. She didn't ask any questions, just offered me a soda and turned on some music. Girl, I nearly sobbed, but I didn't. When I returned, Albert was on Xbox, shouting at a kid online about camping and Spawn. I entered the bedroom and began looking through the closet. Half of the clothes in there are mine, but he always leaves his belongings in a pile on the floor. I began folding my belongings into a laundry bag. He came in and asked what I was doing. I simply answered, laundry. He shrugged and returned to his game. I cooked dinner just for me. He walked in and asked where he was. I informed him that he could make his own. He literally pouted, like a child. I just walked past him and went into my room. I spent the night messaging Claire. I inquired if she was all right after yesterday night, and she answered she was just ashamed of everyone. She apologized for having to deal with Albert, and told me to let her know if I ever needed assistance with the flat. I inquired whether she believed her father would allow Albert to stay if I moved out. She responded, "Well, you're not on the lease, are you?" "Just him." I said, "Yeah, just him. Since when we moved in, he promised to handle the paperwork and never put my name down. I just mentioned it would be less complicated." She added, "Then he's responsible for the rent." I remarked, "Good to know." She responded with a thumbs up emoji. I began to feel slightly better. Next morning, I began relocating more of my belongings. Albert hardly noticed. He was debating with Andrew about fantasy football while moaning about the Wi-Fi. I began unplugging things that were mine and storing them in boxes. I took the router, which I paid for, the coffee maker, the kitchen knives, my blender, my throw pillows, and even the air fryer. I left all of his belongings, his old laptop, his gaming chair, and his mess of miscellaneous wires that he claims he'll arrange someday. I asked Avery to come help me with the heavy items. She arrived at about 2. We loaded her car with boxes. He came out and inquired what we were doing. I said, "Moving some things." He just nodded and went back inside. I left the necessities for the next day: my bed, dresser, and bathroom supplies. I imagined I would return when he was at the gym. He goes every Tuesday at 6 p.m., just like clockwork. Always shares a sweaty mirror selfie on Snapchat. I texted Claire that I'd be out by the weekend. She answered, "Just let me know if there are any problems." I replied that I'd put my keys in the mailbox that night. Albert acted as if nothing was unusual. He asked if I'd want to watch something. I replied, "No thanks." He pouted again. I nearly laughed. He remarked that the kitchen was empty. I responded, "Maybe go to the store." He said, "Why are you being like this?" I said, "You know what you did?" He rolled his eyes and walked away. I shut the restroom door and stayed there for about 20 minutes. My mother called again. I finally responded by informing her that I was moving out. She said, "Oh honey." She didn't seem surprised. She merely asked, "Do you need help moving?" I replied, "Maybe, but Avery has it." She said, "Do you want to stay here for a while?" I said, "Maybe, but I think I'll be fine." She said, "Okay, just let me know." I nearly told her everything, but I didn't. So now comes the good part. The following day, Albert leaves for the gym at 6 a.m. I text Avery. She comes over. We gathered the remainder of my belongings. I place a note on the counter with a list of everything he owes me for the past year. Rent, bills, groceries, cleaning supplies, and so on. As well as a note that says it's your turn to pay. Don't forget the toilets. I placed my keys in the mailbox. I take one more look at the apartment. It appears sad. The energy in the air calls me pathetic. I go away without looking back. I went to Avery's. She gives me a drink, and we spend hours watching silly YouTube videos. My mother texts to say she is proud of me. I did not reply immediately. I just want to be alone for a bit. Later that night I received a series of texts from Albert. He's mad. Says I surprised him. He accuses me of being selfish for leaving him to handle all of the finances. He says he can't believe I would do this to him. I do not reply. He calls me. I ignore it. He calls again and again. I blocked him. I blocked his mother. I blocked his sister. I also block Andrew and Carson, just in case. I text Claire and tell her I'm leaving. She adds, "Thank you for informing me." I inquire whether Albert has paid the rent yet. She answers, "Not yet." I say, Good luck with that. So, that's where I am at. I'm out. I am gone. And I left him with a disaster that he can't ignore. He always aspired to be the big man, the one in charge, the one who never did anything wrong. He can now figure out how to clean up after himself, both literally and metaphorically. I am not saying I am finished either. If he wants to play games, I can join. But for now, I'm going to let him stew. Perhaps now he will know who is truly sad. Please let me know if you would like any additional updates. I have a hunch this isn't done yet. Update 2. Okay, I'm not going to lie, I didn't expect to be posting again so soon, but folks kept asking for updates. And honestly, things became messier than I thought. I also need a place to vent because if I keep ranting about it in my group chat, Avery will show up at my house with a bottle and a baseball bat. And I'm not sure who she'll hit first, me or Albert. So, shortly after I moved out, I assumed Albert would just ignore me. Maybe attempt to trash talk me in front of his pals and then just deal. But no, he went full drama mode. I'm barely even out of Avery's car when I get the first angry text, followed by another, then another. All capitals too. He claims I set him up, that I'm wrecking his life, and that his parents are panicked because they thought I was missing. And now they're phoning him constantly, asking what happened. Like, buddy, maybe you should have considered that before calling me your maid in a crowded setting. Anyway, I disregard everything since I'm not going to play into his hands. Avery keeps telling me to block him, which I already have, but he starts using different numbers. Send me a direct message on Instagram, then on Facebook, which I haven't checked since last year. I simply leave everything unread. I guess he's hoping I'll come back just to stop him up, but not now. What I didn't foresee was how quickly his financial issues would escalate. Claire texts me around 2 days after I left, wondering if I know when Albert will pay rent. I just gave her a screenshot of his latest, "I'll get it next time" text and stated, "Not my circus anymore." She responded with a bunch of laughing emojis and a yikes. He apparently informed her that I would cover for him if there were any problems, which is ridiculous, considering I literally told her I was leaving. I assume he figured I'd continue running his errands from a distance. The group chat turmoil escalates here. So, Albert and I were in a group chat with a few of his friends. Andrew, Carson, Gabriella, and some of their women. Mostly for silly memes, party invitations, and debating about where to order food. I had been quiet there for a long time. But I decide, you know what? If he's going to attempt to spin this as if I'm the evil person, I'm not going to be quiet. So I send a message, not in fury, but just facts. Hey, since Albert keeps messaging me about abandoning him, here's all the rent receipts. Here's the stuff I paid for. Here's screenshots of his maid with benefits joke and his texts about having me trained. Not trying to start a war, just clearing up the facts. Not gonna lie, that conversation blew up. 2 of the guys attempt to defend Albert, claiming that he was just intoxicated and didn't mean it. Gabriella claims she always believed he treated me poorly, and is relieved I finally left. Andrew claims I'm being dramatic, but I simply send a photo of the letter I placed on the counter with the total amount he owes me for the year. Silence for about an hour after that. Carson ultimately texts me privately, asking whether I'm fine, and if I need any assistance moving anything else. I say, "I'm fine but thank you." And he simply responds, "Albert is having a rough time." I don't respond. Meanwhile, Claire informs me that her father is now involved since Albert failed to pay rent for the first time in his life, and attempted to blame me as well. Which, like, good luck. My name isn't even on the lease. Her father is upset and informs Albert that he has 1 week to pay, or he will leave. I can almost see Albert attempting to argue his way out of it. All phony charm. But it doesn't work this time. In normal life, I'm just trying to keep things moving. I'm at Avery's for a few days, sleeping on her couch, and we're joking about how I should bill Albert for maid services. My mother calls every day to see whether I'm all right, and I keep saying yes, but she keeps offering to bring over groceries or pick me up if I need a break. I finally go over there for supper, and she cooks lasagna without saying, "I told you so," which is her idea of a hug. He texts Avery, wondering if she can talk some sense into me. She sends him a simple, "Don't ever text me again," and then blocks him. I appreciate her for that. He tries Carson, who simply leaves him to read. Andrew attempts to call me, and I let it go to voicemail. He leaves a rambling message about Albert's awful situation and how everyone makes errors. I've simply erased it. I'm not interested in getting guilted into solving his problems. So, social pressure is actually working. People are not buying his poor me act. Claire claims her father is fed up and ready to start showing the home to potential tenants if Albert fails to pay the rent by Friday. That's about 3 days away. I'm not going to lie, I get a little satisfaction from it. I mean, for more than a year, I've been discreetly handling everything. Cleaning up, paying bills, apologizing to Claire for late payments, and representing him with his parents. He's now on his own to answer for everything, and he's struggling. The finest aspect is that there are actual consequences. Claire's father is not being nasty. He is only conducting business. He adds if Albert does not pay, he must leave. Carson tells me Albert is trying to borrow money from everyone, but no one wants to offer him anything because they all know he won't pay it back. Even Andrew, who is normally his #1 hype man, admits he has bills. Gabriella apologizes for not noticing how he treated me sooner. I just tell her it's fine. I'm all right now. I received a text from Albert's mother from a strange number, as I had blocked her primary one, asking if I would assist Albert out. Just this once for old time's sake. She says he is really suffering and doesn't know how to keep up with things. I simply emailed back, I'm not his maid. She never responds. Oh, and this is petty, but I am not sorry. A few days later I returned to the flat with Claire. She let me in to get the remainder of my belongings, a box of books and my old blender, which Albert never used but insisted on keeping just in case. He was there, and he tried to argue with me, saying I ruined his life and that I didn't have to reveal it. I just answered, you did that yourself. He tried to come in my way, staying in the corridor and refusing to move, so I pushed past him. He shut the door behind me. Claire just rolled her eyes and replied, he's not your problem anymore. I gathered my belongings and left. So, I don't know, but I think I'm finally understanding how much of his attitude was based on entitlement. As if he truly believed I'd always cover for him, clean up after him, pay his bills, and laugh at his jokes. He used to say that I was good at keeping things together, but in reality, he didn't want to do anything. And when he was called out, he attempted to make me look like the villain. Now he's stuck. He has only himself to blame. And every time he tries to make me the bad guy, it only backfires. People are beginning to see through the act. Even his parents who used to contact me for everything. Serena, did you remind Albert to call his grandma? Serena, did Albert find his insurance card? Are learning they can't make me solve it. I am not being mean. Just finished. I'll keep you updated if anything else happens. But, to be honest, I believe this is the beginning of him dealing with his own mess. And if you're reading this and you're the Serena in your relationship, believe me, you don't owe anyone your sanity or credit score. I suppose that's all for now, unless he tries something new, which wouldn't surprise me at all. Update 3. Okay, so this is probably going to be my last update for a bit unless something genuinely crazy occurs, because not gonna lie, I'm exhausted, and I need to finally get on with my own work. But I promised a last wrap-up, and honestly, this one is lengthy. So, if you're still reading, thank you for your support, DMs, and girl same comments. I'm not used to random online strangers rooting for me, so this is very good. After the last piece, I was largely just waiting to see if Albert would pay his rent or get kicked out. And to be honest, I didn't think he'd go down without one final weak move. I was not mistaken. But first, let me start with the craziest part. His parents. So, the morning after I left for good, I still had 20 missed calls from his mother, father, and even his sister's old phone number. I'm not sure, but I kept ignoring them, and to be honest, it got to the point where I felt pity for not even responding to their texts. Examples include, I'm alive, leave me alone. But then, around midday my phone starts blowing up again. The same numbers, but with longer voicemails. His mother, frantic, asked me to just talk to her, claiming Albert is in poor form, hasn't eaten, can't sleep, and has never been like this before. I listen to about half a message, roll my eyes, and then delete it. I'm not cold-hearted, but I'm no longer his mediator. I am not his father, therapist, or maid. The next thing, and this is the bit that truly makes me want to flip a table, she begins texting my mother. Like my actual mother. I imagine she still had her phone number from the one time they met at a holiday event. I only discovered it after my mother called and said, is everything okay? Albert's mom says he can't pay rent and he needs you to come back and talk some sense into him. My mother simply sounded tired, as if she expected me to say I was getting back together with him. But I told her straight up, nope, I'm done, he's on his own. Please don't answer her anymore. She simply answered, okay, and asked if I needed her to bring over groceries. Albert keeps calling. Now he alternates between madness and sadness. Like one moment it's, you ruined my life, and the next it's, I'm sorry, come back, I'll change. I ignore every single call. He tries other numbers and even tries to FaceTime me. I block everything. It's really like whack-a-mole. Avery still laughs about it. He suggests I start charging him by the call. Meanwhile, Claire texts me that her father has finally given Albert the official notice. He has to go by Friday if he cannot pay. Apparently he tried to secure an extension by claiming his ex sabotaged him. Claire's father simply stated, it's not my business. Pay or move. Albert attempts to guilt everyone else. Carson texts me that Albert tried to borrow money from him and claimed I stole his belongings. Nope. I literally grabbed only what was mine and left the rest, including receipts. Gabriella texts me, claiming Albert DM'd her and asked if she could vouch for him if Claire's father inquired about payment history. She gave him a gif of someone laughing, and that changed my night. Andrew is the only individual who does not appear to be taking sides, but that is because he dislikes drama, not because he is neutral. He texts me and says he doesn't want to become involved, which is practically his mantra in life. So by Thursday, Claire texts me that Albert is in complete panic mode. He's behind on everything, rent, internet, and possibly even his weird subscriptions. I still receive emails regarding his previous food box service, which, not my problem. I believe he tried calling Claire's father again, and when that failed, he contacted his mother, who then called me again. This time I picked it up, mainly because I was annoyed. She begins with an entire conversation. Please, Serena. I know he messed up, but he's so lost without you. He's not good at handling life stuff, you know how he is. I've only just stated, sorry, I'm not part of this anymore. You need to talk to your son, not me. She begins crying briefly, which is embarrassing, and I simply say goodbye, and hang up. I believe Albert treats people this way because he has always gotten away with it. His parents, for example, lavish him with attention. His friends either dismiss it or laugh it off. And I was only the latest person to take up the slack. He gets loud when he's humiliated, jokes when he's nervous, and when that doesn't work, he just waits for someone else to come solve things. I mean, I knew he was lazy, but I never realized how much he relied on people to pick up after him until I stopped doing it. So anyhow, Friday arrives. I'm eating leftover noodles in my new house, which is just a shoebox, but it's mine. When Claire texts me, just a thumbs up, he's gone. Albert apparently did not pay, and did not pack up half of his belongings. Instead, he simply left them. Claire's father indicated he could come get the rest if he wanted, but the locks had been changed, and he no longer lives there. I inquired if he caused a scene. She only claims he cried briefly, slammed the door and fled. I nearly feel awful for a second, but then I recall how he behaved at that party, and I'm simply, nah. I do not. And get this. He tries to show up at my new place. I mean literally knocking on the door. I hear it, and look out the window to see him standing there, his hoodie drawn up and holding a grocery bag. I do not open the door. I text Avery, who is really in the next building over, and she comes out, stands on the sidewalk, and simply stares at him until he departs. He doesn't say anything to her and simply walks away. Avery texts me, dude is lost. I block his phone number again, just in case. The next day, I received a note in my mailbox. It's from Albert, handwritten, which is unusual. He only writes when absolutely necessary. It's like 3 paragraphs of apologies, explanations, pleading for a second chance, stating he can't do it alone, that he didn't mean anything, blah blah. He even offers to repay me for everything if I return. I tear it up and discard it, not even bothering to react. So that's all, I suppose. Albert has left. I'm out. Claire's family has already started tidying the apartment for new renters. His folks tried everything. Even called my mother again. She simply ignores them now. Gabriella claims Albert is couch surfing at Andrew's house. But Andrew isn't enjoying it, and will probably force him out soon. Carson is still indifferent, but he emailed me that Albert is considering moving back in with his parents. I'm simply pleased I'm not cleaning up after him anymore. The next time someone deems me dull, I will simply chuckle and move on. Because really, I'd rather be boring and free than be trapped cleaning up after some person who believes he's the main character. So, thanks for reading my insane story. If you're ever in a scenario where you're doing all the work and someone treats you like a helper, don't wait for a major revelation. Simply start packing. You'll be surprised at how quickly the trash clears itself. And no, I did not call his parents back. Not my circus, not my monkeys. If Albert wants to get his life in order, he could start by learning how to wash laundry, or at the very least, how to pay his own dang rent. That's it for now. Maybe next time I'll write about something fun. Thanks for watching and sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed these stories, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss the next drama-filled episode. My boyfriend dumped me over red flags his best friend made up. He begged to return, but I made him confront her before cutting him off. I, 23F, had been with my boyfriend Eric, 24M, for about 8 months. Eric had never had a long-term relationship before, and most of his ex-girlfriends were flings that lasted only 3 or 4 months. Naturally, I love to believe that this relationship was meaningful for him. But a few days ago, I discovered that may not be the case. Eric's best buddy, Olivia, 24F, has been his neighbor for more than 14 years. They met when they were 10 years old and have remained inseparable since. They attended the same school, college, and now work in the same place. When I say best friend, I mean it. Eric never does anything without consulting Olivia first. Even the decision to date me was not totally his own. He later told me that every lady he'd ever dated had to get Olivia's approval first. If Olivia asked him to end the relationship, he would. I believe this explains why his previous relationships failed. Eric only told me about this 4 months into our relationship, stating he believed it was time. I had already become strongly attached to him, so I chose to stay. Yes, I understand. Bad decision. If I had known about his unusual need for Olivia sooner, I would not have gone on a first date with him. My relationship with Olivia wasn't terrible, at least not until recently. Olivia and I met numerous times, and while we were polite, I had the impression she wanted to quietly show me that Eric would always be hers first. When it was just the 3 of us, she made me feel alienated and uncomfortable. Initially, I made every attempt to befriend her, but my efforts were futile. It appeared that she had already made up her mind against me. To make matters worse, I unintentionally made it into a competition between ourselves. She wasn't going to take it lying down. Finally, around 5 days ago, something occurred. I was feeling quite ill, and because I work away from home, I didn't have someone to look after me. My roommate was on a trip, leaving me completely alone. Normally, I wouldn't rely on a male, but this time, I called my boyfriend and asked him to come over and help me out. He was apprehensive at first, but I assumed it was because he didn't want to catch whatever I had. So I told him it was only a stomach illness and he will be okay. But, even so, he appeared reluctant. I asked him what was going on, and he said he was going to watch a movie and then have lunch with Olivia. He was unsure whether he'd be able to make it. I was already sick and not feeling well, and Eric was prioritizing Olivia over me. I had always understood that if it came down to it, he would choose Olivia over me, but it still hurt. I became incredibly furious off and told him he should date Olivia instead, then hung up. I didn't answer any of his calls after that. An hour later, Eric arrived and apologized for what he did. I was relieved when he arrived because, honestly, if he hadn't, I would have ended our relationship. He informed me that he had canceled his arrangements with Olivia and even brought me homemade soup. That day, I felt really positive about him. We spent the day together, and by the time he left that night, I was feeling much better. But I had no idea my actions would have ramifications. Eric stopped contacting me the very following day. No calls or texts for the entire day. I panicked a little, thinking something horrible had happened to him. I tried to contact him throughout the day but had no luck. At approximately midnight, he called me back. He talked in an entirely different tone, serious, even upset. After inquiring if I felt better, he suggested I sit down. Then he broke up with me. At first, I assumed it was a joke, but he kept talking. He said it was difficult for him to come to this conclusion, but he had finally understood that my conduct was nothing but a bunch of red flags, and that he couldn't stay with me any longer. I was completely confused. As far as I was concerned, I had not done or said anything to him that would have raised a red flag, at least not knowingly. I had always strived to be a decent person and a good girlfriend. This was a major shock for me. I didn't know what to say, so I remained silent as he informed me he couldn't be with me anymore. Then he hung up. The suddenness of it all astounded me. We had just had such a nice time together the day before, and now he was telling us we were overdue for red flags. It didn't make sense. I ended up weeping myself to sleep that night because I couldn't contact or text him for help. After we broke up, he blocked me everywhere. There was no way for me to receive closure or an explanation. Eric didn't even have the decency to break up with me in person, despite how long we'd been dating. He also did not provide a good explanation. For the next 2 days, I was extremely distraught and preoccupied at work and when completing housework. I just couldn't accept that it had ended so quickly. I kept repeating our last few exchanges in my thoughts, trying to figure out what had prompted him to suggest that I had a lot of red flags, but I couldn't come up with anything. The Olivia factor had not even occurred to me because I hadn't seen her in a few weeks and had forgotten how much she dominated Eric's life. Anyway, last night I finally got a call from Eric. I was taken aback because I hadn't expected it. I had just started to digest our separation, so it felt quite sudden. I answered the phone, and he immediately began apologizing. He didn't even give me the opportunity to say anything at first. He sounded hysterical, so I let him vent. He said he didn't want to break up with me. Olivia was the one who made him do it. Apparently, she disliked the fact that I forced him to cancel plans with her and convinced him that it was a red sign. She even brought up a few of other seemingly innocuous things I do to depict me as a giant red flag. Eric said he had fallen for it. Olivia, he claimed, had fed him a series of lies, alleging that I was attempting to build a rift between them and that this was a warning sign. She also distorted things like me preparing meals I like or buying clothes for him that I believed he'd look beautiful in, making them appear as manipulative efforts to control his life. I couldn't believe anyone would fall for such rubbish, let alone break up over it, but Eric was probably an idiot. He then apologized for everything and begged me to accept him back. He claimed he was willing to do whatever it required. My blood was boiling, so I said nothing for a time. I struggled to keep my rage under control. All this time, I blamed myself for the breakup, believing it was my responsibility. But now I see that was all Olivia's doing, and she was most likely fine with it. I should have expected her to try anything to get back at me. After all, I had stolen Eric from right beneath her nose. When I was sick, his decision to care for me and cancel our plans must have made her perceive me as a competitor. She couldn't have it, so she made sure we broke up. Everything suddenly made clear. Eric was pleading with me over the phone, imploring me to accept him back. He even had the arrogance to say that Olivia would no longer be a problem because he would keep our connection a secret from her. I was appalled. Even after all had transpired, he couldn't realize how much Olivia was in charge of his life. If he had broken up with me for another reason, I might have considered taking him back. But I couldn't believe he ditched me over something Olivia had said without considering for himself. Eric was clearly an imbecile. Whether or not he kept our relationship covert, Olivia would maintain control over him, and he would continue to do anything she wanted like a puppet. What upset me even more was Eric's refusal to recognize that Olivia might not have his best interests at heart. He was even willing to hide our relationship in order to keep their so-called friendship. This was a huge red flag for me. I had no intention of getting back to him. I had already made up my mind the moment he revealed the true reason for the breakup. I'd cried enough for this person, and he didn't deserve it, but I couldn't just let it go without trying to put Olivia in her place. That's why I did something so selfish and manipulative, and, while I'm not proud of it, I believe it was necessary. Last night, I told my boyfriend that I would only get back with him if he notified Olivia about his decision and confronted her for controlling his life. He'd have to inform her that she wasn't his employer and that he'd be getting back with me regardless of her. Only if he did that would I contemplate getting back together, because if Olivia humiliated me, I would undoubtedly reciprocate the favor. When I told Eric what I wanted him to do, he was horrified and tried to persuade me to reconsider, stating it was excessive and unneeded. He protested for a long, trying to get out of it, but I was determined. I informed him that I would only respond if he texted her what I had asked. Otherwise, he may say farewell and remain broken up. After a few more minutes of fighting, Eric finally gave in. He sent Olivia those texts and even provided me with a screenshot as proof. I instantly hung up and blocked him. I knew it was petty and cruel, but I couldn't help it. I'd been upset over the past 3 days about our breakup, and this was the least I could do to feel some sense of justice. AITA? Am I the asshole for forcing Eric to send Olivia those texts, especially since I had no intention of responding in the first place. Update 1. It's been 2 days since I spoke with Eric, and he hasn't been able to reach me since. Olivia is unable to contact me since I have also blocked her. I initially felt awful about what I forced Eric to do, but after reading the replies below, I realize I don't have a good reason to feel that way. Eric had a choice, and he chose to send Olivia those texts because he wanted to be with me rather than her. It's not like I held him at gunpoint. He did exactly what he desired. Yes, lying to him about getting back together was wrong, I accept it, but I don't believe what I did was as horrible as what had happened to me. He didn't think twice before convincing me that I was the red flag in our relationship when it was truly him all along. He did everything his so-called BFF requested him to do, regardless of how it affected me or his own life. He had no idea how bad I felt throughout the time we were apart. I had no answers and started overthinking what I'd done, which just made me more puzzled. So forgive me if I don't feel too awful about what I did. I haven't told anyone about my breakup with Eric yet, but I assume I'll have to start shortly. Only a few hours earlier, one of my friends invited Eric and me to her birthday celebration. When I arrive without him, I will have to explain his absence. I'm dreading that part because I'm not sure what I'll say when people ask why we broke up. Especially since we were happy on the surface. I'll have to come up with something, but that's okay. At the very least, I am done with that relationship. Update 2. Hello everyone, it's been over a week since I broke up with Eric. I assumed that blocking Eric and his BFF Olivia would mean that I'd never have to interact with them again. Unfortunately, this was not the case. This morning, I received a call from a number I did not know. Naturally, I let it ring the first time, but when they called again, I responded. It was Olivia on the phone. As soon as I heard her voice, I was prepared to hang up because I had absolutely no desire to chat with her. But then she warned that if I hung up, it would only reveal that I was a coward and frightened to confront her. I should not have let it affect me, but it did. So I stayed on the call. Olivia then went on to say terrible things about me right in front of my face. She called me a variety of names for what I'd done, including a sneaky little liar, and expressed her relief that Eric and I had split up since he was too good for me. Then she called me the B word, which really irritated me, and I snapped. I told her just what I thought of her. I told her she was nothing more than Eric's backup girlfriend and would most likely spend her entire life trying to keep other girls away from him so she could have him all to herself. I believe I struck a nerve with that one because, as soon as I said it, she began fumbling and sounding like she was about to cry. I took advantage of that and went even further. I informed her that she could scream at me all she wanted, but Eric had the option not to send her those texts. It was his decision, and he chose me over her. That was the final straw. On the other end, I could hear her start crying. I didn't feel sorry for her because she'd called to make me feel awful. But here she was, crying. I'm not sure if she and Eric are still on speaking terms, but I hope she runs to him and complains about what I said. If they come after me again, I'd love to put both of them in their place and remind them that I'm not someone they can mess with and get away with it. They aren't the only ones who have the right to damage others' sentiments. They need to realize that if they're comfortable handing it out, they should be equally comfortable receiving it. Update number 3. Hey, there. Olivia called me 2 days ago, and the conversation ended horribly for her. Like I stated, I was hoping Eric would confront me about it so I could tell them both off. That finally occurred today. The person who introduced us was hosting a party, and we were both invited. She was unaware that Eric and I had ended our relationship. Eric entered the party about an hour in, accompanied by Olivia. They both appeared ready to battle. I drew my friend aside and recounted the entire issue to her. I even offered to depart early in case things went wrong. While I wanted to cause a spectacle, I didn't want it to happen on my friend's birthday and steal the spotlight from her. It would not have been nice. But my friend suggested I stay. She admitted that she wouldn't mind if we confronted one another at the party because she wanted to see the drama play out in person, especially after what I'd told her. I had the decency to ignore Eric and Olivia since, if anyone was going to start a fight, it had to be them. I was classier than that. But when it came to teaching them their place, I was willing to fall to their level. Eric approached me about a half hour after they arrived at the party, while I was speaking with another guy. I wasn't flirting, just making normal small talk. I believe he simply wanted an excuse to put me down because he walked up and loudly stated that I had already moved on from him. He then called me a cheater and a phony in front of everyone. Olivia appeared behind him with a malicious smirk. I swear I wanted to slap that nasty smile off her face, but I managed to restrain myself. Eric was spouting crap right in my face, even bringing up the phone call from a few days ago. He said I was mistaken about Olivia being the backup since, In fact, I was the backup and not worth dating. I laughed in his face since, if I recall correctly, he was the one who came crawling back to me just days after dumping me over what Olivia had told him. He'd had his say. Now it was my chance to reveal him and his loving BFF for who they really were. I told him that both he and Olivia were much below my level. He should have counted himself lucky that he could persuade me to date him in the first place. As far as I was concerned, he was Olivia's spineless puppet, and no other woman would want him. At the very least, I was willing to give him a chance, but he blew that as well. Furthermore, his so-called BFF was depressed and insecure enough to want to end our relationship simply because he spent a day with me while I was unwell. She even utilized a new phone number to reach me, indicating how essential I was to her. Honestly, her acts betrayed her insecurity and pitiful nature. They were an ideal complement for one another. I genuinely hoped they got together because no one should have to cope with individuals like them. By then, the party had come to a halt. Everyone stared at us silently. Eric had nothing to say and simply stared at me. Olivia, without a clear response, began flinging expletives at me. She got up in my personal space, plainly trying to get me to punch her so she could retaliate. But I maintained my calm. I didn't even want to touch her. Eric decided to leave when she began to have a breakdown. They obviously did not want to be any more ashamed than they already were. Once again, their pitiful little attempt to humiliate me had failed. Eric had to literally drag Olivia away because she refused to accept defeat. After they went, my friend approached me, told me how awesome I was, and we all laughed about what occurred. We resumed partying and finished the evening on a high note with cocktails and a delicious dinner. I'm pleased with what happened because I got the closure I needed. Update 4. Hey everyone, here's a little update. I just found out that Olivia and Eric are finally together, LOL. It's been 3 months since our little altercation at the party, and I guess they recognized I was correct. No other reasonable person would put up with them separately, so they chose to date each other instead. I heard this from a friend of a friend, as I no longer communicate with any of them. As for me, I'm seeing a new guy who is exactly my type. I hope this works, and that he doesn't have a psycho best friend that he hasn't told me about. My wife started overspending and left the kids to go on a trip after I got promoted. Am I the asshole for filing for divorce and blocking her cards? My wife, Meredith, and I, both 38, have been married for the past decade and together for about 13. We've had a somewhat typical relationship, with no affairs or significant misunderstandings, and our families get along well together. We also have 2 amazing children, a 7-year-old girl and a 5-year-old son. We come from comparable financial backgrounds. Our parents raised us comfortably, but we weren't spoiled. I'm not sure how she got into the habit of being a spendthrift anytime she thought she could afford it, even if only a little. I believe that's been my main complaint about her during our relationship. She doesn't always realize that we shouldn't spend all of our money right away. She subscribes to the "it's just money" school of thought, which is something we've always differed on. However, it has never been a major issue for us to quarrel over, and we have nearly always ignored it. This became a big concern a year ago when I was promoted to CFO at my company, which came with a large compensation increase. Obviously, I informed Meredith of my expected salary, and I recall reminding her that just because I was getting a rise did not mean we should suddenly begin living above our means. I don't think she heard me, though, because she began splurging frequently shortly after my promotion. It began with buying sprees. She then began spending my money on nice items from well-known brands, even going so far as to redecorate our home. She got rid of all of our perfectly decent furniture so she could replace it with brand new, trendy pieces. You can imagine how much that must have cost me because she made no contribution to any of these expenses, despite the fact that she is a working woman. The main difference is that she is a high school teacher while I work longer hours in corporate. I have to admit that my wife handles most of the domestic tasks and spends the most time with our children. That was her initial defense. She expressed her dissatisfaction with working all day and felt entitled to a reward for her efforts. She reminded me that when I had to work late at night or travel regularly for work prior to my promotion, she was the one who held down the fort at home. With 2 young children, that was also a difficult chore. I understood where she was coming from, so even though I attempted to persuade her to cut back on her reckless spending, all I did was talk to her and hope she understood my worry. But she didn't, and things just got worse. She kept spending more money. I'm not a miser, but whenever I tried to talk to her about her spending habits, she treated me like one. She'd make me feel bad for attempting to stop her. We had recently fought a lot about our finances. Even though I was making decent money following my promotion, we hadn't been able to save much because of her extravagant spending. Then, last week, she pushed all boundaries. When I got home from work, I discovered that the babysitter had been summoned, and instead of Meredith, she was caring for the kids. I was obviously perplexed because we generally only contact the babysitter when both of us need to go out. Meredith hadn't told me about her plans for the day, which she generally does, even if it's only to meet friends for breakfast or something else. I do the same for her. I tried calling her several times but couldn't get through. I eventually asked the babysitter to clarify what was going on, and she informed me that Meredith had reportedly hired her to remain with the kids for a week, day and night. This made me even more bewildered, as I had no understanding what was going on. I let the babysitter handle the kids while I tried to phone Meredith and her parents, but neither of them answered. I even tried contacting her pals, but they had no idea what was going on either. After nearly 3 hours of attempting, she finally answered my call. I instantly placed her on blast because her behavior was so irregular, and I felt entitled to an explanation. She explained that she couldn't react earlier since she and her parents were on a flight. They had decided to take a family trip to Miami, so none of them could return my calls. She didn't think she needed to elaborate anymore. I had to ask her why she had left me and the kids behind to travel to Miami with her parents without first addressing it with me. I already knew she planned to stay for a week because the babysitter had told me. When I began questioning her, she did not take it well. Instead, she told me that I had no business referring to her in that manner because she had done everything in her power to secure her family's happiness. She felt it was time for her to do something for her parents as well. I attempted to tell her that I didn't mind her doing things for her parents, but the fact that she didn't think it was necessary to discuss it with me first worried me. That had been the situation for the previous year. She had never contacted me before making important financial decisions. She simply cut me off harshly, saying she needed and deserved a break, and hung up. I tried contacting her several more times, but she did not answer. That was the final straw for me. I had tolerated her conduct for a long time, but I couldn't take it anymore. I immediately made a couple calls to block her credit cards. Her personal card was the only one that continued to work. After confirming the cards were blocked, I began receiving phone calls and messages from her, but I turned off all notifications. I then called a buddy, who connected me with his divorce lawyer. I explained the scenario to the lawyer and requested him to begin drafting divorce papers for me right away because I'd had enough. 2 days later, Meredith returned home. When I answered the door, she instantly apologized for her actions. She claimed she had no idea how hurt I would feel. She claimed she took the next available aircraft back home as soon as she realized the enormity of her error. She claimed that she would have returned earlier, but storms had canceled all flights, forcing her and her parents to wait. Now that she was back, she stated she was willing to discuss and tell her side of the story so that we could work things out. It was too late, however. My lawyer had already delivered the divorce papers to me for signature the night before. I tossed the papers at her and told her she had to deal with them because I was done with her. While she was still reading the papers, I shut the door. A few seconds later, she began shouting at me, knocking on the door, and imploring me to open it. She continued saying that I could not do this to her. It hurt a lot to see her like that, but I honestly couldn't handle it any longer. Fortunately, our children did not have to witness their mother's emotional breakdown, nor did they have to see me ignore her. I'd sent them to stay with my parents for a few days, expecting that something like this would happen. Meredith continued to knock on the door for nearly 15 minutes before giving up and leaving, likely to return to her parents. She has been attempting to chat to me for the past week. I've muted her everywhere. I haven't blocked her because we still have the kids to think about, and even if I do, I'll have to unblock her someday, so it seems pointless. Out of curiosity, I read a few of her messages. It has been a mixed bag. Most of the time, she apologizes profusely, not just for the most recent episode, but for everything that has occurred. She has promised to attempt to curb her costs and be more responsible with our finances. However, her texts occasionally take on a different tone. She accuses me of being ruthless and says I can't waste 13 years of our relationship and a decade of marriage on this. She says that if I want to work things out, I must want to do so with her. She recently wrote me a message in which she acknowledged that I was upset with her, which was understandable, but reminded me that we have 2 children together and must consider their well-being. She accused me of being overly egoistic, stating I was only concerned with myself and my wrath, not the children. She went on to say that most people try to work through such issues before filing for divorce. For some reason, her message stuck with me, most likely because she mentioned the kids. Now I'm reevaluating the entire scenario. I'm beginning to worry if I'm being too hard on her. The notion of divorce has also taken its toll on me, and I realize that I may not have been thinking about the children as much as I should have. I've been visiting them at my parents' house, trying to keep things under control, but I know they're unhappy. They will probably be even more sad without their mother in their life. Despite her flaws, Meredith is a good mother. She was not lying when she said she had always tried to make our family happy. Perhaps I am making a hasty decision by filing for divorce so quickly. Update 1. Hey, after reading the comments, I realize there are some topics I still need to talk with my wife before making such a big decision. Not just those in the comments, but also my friends and family, agree that chatting with her could be good. So, yesterday, I decided to contact her and offer to meet her for lunch and discuss. We opted to keep the kids out of it, despite the fact that she missed and wanted to see them. For practical reasons, I didn't think we'd be able to communicate effectively if they were present. I did, however, tell her that she was welcome to visit my parents whenever she wished. When we eventually met, it seemed weird at first. Then she went right in and started apologizing for everything. She stated her point of view and informed me that she thought I was always being frugal with money instead of simply trying to enjoy our life. She conceded, however, that she did have an issue with overspending and had been in denial about it for so long. She saw herself as the ideal wife and refused to accept that this was a problem she needed to resolve. She also said that because of my job, she often worried that I wouldn't be able to spend enough time with my family or at home. In some strange manner, she was simply trying to keep herself occupied since she was really lonely. That was something we'd discussed previously. As a high school teacher, her hours were relatively short, yet she spent the majority of her time at home each day. She didn't have many pals because her former friends were either busy during the week or spent weekends with their family. She expressed her desire to spend time with us because weekends were the only time I could be with the family. Because of this, she hasn't been able to form any significant connections in the 10 years after we married and had children. Whatever friendships she had before had begun to grow apart, and she now only saw those friends on occasion. She said that she thought that shopping would help her cope with her loneliness and boredom. Retail therapy was the one thing that made her happy. She became preoccupied with remodeling our home, going on shopping sprees, and making big purchases because it gave her something to focus on. For some reason, she felt like she was accomplishing something worthwhile with her time and money. The trouble was that she didn't realize she was beyond regular spending limitations, which is why we had so many conflicts. She really apologized and agreed that she should have told me about it. She found it quite difficult to admit to herself that this was a genuine problem. As she told me this, she began crying, and I realized how lonely she had gotten. It's true that after our marriage and having children, she had little time for herself. I had to admit that a big portion, if not all of this, was due to the sacrifices Mom had made for me and our family. When we had our firstborn, she spent less time with her friends and family because someone had to stay at home in the evenings to finish the task. I'd arrive home late, and it was nearly hard for me to divide the tasks or take over responsibility for our infant since I was so fatigued. When we had our second child, she went above and beyond to manage 2 children and the household so that I didn't have any problems. Of course, it was teamwork, but she was still on the team and performed admirably. As we talked, it dawned on me how much effort we had both put in over the last 10 years to secure our family's happiness. I concluded that I couldn't waste all of those years simply because I was sad. Yes, I was outraged and extremely wounded by her actions, but she saw the problem and was determined to change. I believed I owed it to her and our children to try to make our marriage work. I tried to console her while she was crying, telling her that I was willing to work on our marriage. However, I thought it would be best if we took a few days apart to cool off, and she agreed. We were both being realistic. After all, we had just had a massive dispute, likely one of the most serious in our relationship, especially because I had gone so far as to see a lawyer. That's a significant event, and I believed that taking some time apart to reflect on our behavior would be beneficial. I couldn't expect her to be away from the kids for too long, so I told her they were staying with her in-laws and she could visit whenever she wanted. She was pleased with the choice, and the meeting ended on a positive note. We also agreed to meet again exactly a week later. In the meantime, I intended to contact my lawyer to cancel the divorce procedures. Update 2. Hello, Meredith and I met again yesterday. We have been in touch for the past week, and we both acknowledge that our marriage is far from perfect. It hasn't been ideal in a long time, and we both agreed that we needed to work on it. We chose to attend a marriage counselor and committed to making it work. We agreed that it shouldn't be too difficult because we still love one another. As long as we can agree on one thing, we can overcome whatever obstacles that arise. This week apart provided me with valuable information and opportunity to ponder on my life. She wasn't wrong about anything. She was right when she stated I spent a lot of time at work, and she was also right about how much money she spent. We were both excessive in our own ways, and it had a negative impact on our marriage, to the point where we were thinking about divorce. That clearly has to change. As I said in my last update, I am grateful that so many individuals supported my decision. Of course, there are still others who believe I'm doing the wrong thing and have labeled me a doormat for even considering giving our marriage another chance after what she did. But that doesn't matter because she's the mother of my children and we've been together for a long time. One fight is insufficient to erase that. Besides, we're not only doing this for ourselves, but also for our kids. They definitely need both of us in their lives. I've already spoken extensively about my decision and discussed why I arrived at this determination. Neither of us was flawless, but now that we've identified the flaws on both sides, we're tackling them together. It is fine if this causes some people to be upset. After all, you only have the information I've provided, but I've been in this relationship for years and know this is the best way forward. I don't dismiss anyone's advice or life experiences, but a few people being dissatisfied with my decision on an online forum won't change or affect it. That is all. Having said that, I'm quite pleased with my choice. When Meredith and I met yesterday after our 1-week vacation, we were both in a much better mood. We hugged as soon as we saw each other, and that hug gave me confidence that I was doing the right thing. It was evident that neither of us were prepared to let go. She was the first true love of my life, and I have been the same for her. We just lost touch in our relationship while juggling professions, families, and other commitments. As folks say, life got in the way. But don't worry. She's finally moved back in. She returned this morning, and I also brought our kids home from my parents' house. Now we're all living together as one happy family under the same roof, and I hope to keep it that way for the rest of our lives. I know the last 2 weeks have been extremely difficult for all of us, particularly the children. At least Meredith and I are grown-ups who can manage our emotions better than they can. As much as my children adore their grandparents, they both missed us horribly. I could see the joy on their faces when we all got back together, and I never want to put them through something like this again. Knowing that I'm doing the best thing for my family makes it easier to forgive Meredith. During our chat yesterday, Meredith and I agreed that what she had done was wrong. She explained that the only reason she went without notifying me was that she knew I would be upset. She believed that as a grown woman, she shouldn't have to beg for permission from anyone. We worked through it, realizing that it wasn't about asking for my permission, but about being honest with me and thinking about our family, which she hadn't done. She apologized again, and I assured her that I was ready to go on and start again. That's how we got back together. Even today, a few hours later, when the kids had fallen asleep, we spoke again. She apologized to me for being so insensitive, particularly during the last year. She burst into tears again, and I soothed her. We made several pledges to each other. This time, we're determined to keep our pledges and not forget about each other, or our children, while living our lives. That was the worst mistake we've ever made, and we're determined to avoid it again. Update 3. It's been almost 6 months since my previous update. I purposefully waited until now to post anything because, even after my last update, many people questioned whether this would work. Some accused me of being a doormat, or a pushover, because I gave my wife another chance. A few even took the time to contact me directly to express their thoughts. None of this matters now. We've been attending couples counseling for 6 months and are actively working on our issues. Guess what? It has been working in our advantage. We've never been happier together, and the kids are doing great as well. We're no longer constantly arguing or making subtle jabs at each other without recognizing it. We had no idea how much our behavior had been harming the children until we began addressing it. We've been working on it slowly as well. Instead of suppressing our frustrations and acting out like children, we began communicating directly with one another. That's made all the difference. Of course, we still need to put in effort. Sometimes it's important to keep our cool, but other times it's better to let it all out and have a genuine disagreement. But, at the end of the day, we're still together and have always been able to work through our differences. That is what is actually important to us. Everyone in our lives is relieved we did not go through with the divorce, especially our parents. Initially, they weren't completely opposed to the idea, but they eventually concluded it would be too severe. Honestly, I don't think obtaining a divorce would have made either of us happy. We'd both be miserable. That being said, remaining together isn't for everyone, but it was the greatest option for us. I have maintained all of my vows to Meredith, and she has kept hers to me. I've reduced my job hours and am trying to spend more time with my family. We've been going on weekend getaways, having supper together, and spending time with the kids. I'm gradually discovering how much I've been losing out on, and frankly, I don't believe the rat race is worth sacrificing family for. This change may have an impact on, or possibly slow down, my professional development. I am not concerned about being passed over for future promotions. I'll devote as much time to work as required, but I won't allow it consume my life. Meredith has also started to live a more fulfilling life. Instead of devoting all of her time to her family and then splurging all at once, she has begun to spend time with her friends and pursue new interests. She now prioritizes self-care, which has been a nice adjustment. She appears to be a lot happier and is no longer prone to overspending. In short, we're all happier than we were 6 months ago, or even before that. We're all really delighted we decided to keep together. Update 4. Hello everyone. It has been almost a year since my last post, and in a few weeks, Meredith and I will be throwing a party and ceremony to reaffirm our marriage vows. The last few months have been incredible, so we decided it's the perfect moment to renew our vows. This ceremony will be far grander than our previous wedding. When we married, we were both just starting out in our careers and relied largely on our parents to finance the wedding costs. We couldn't make it too enormous, as it would have been unreasonable. This time, however, we are splurging a little, and happily, we agree on it. We've earned this. But it isn't the finest part. Meredith gifted me with a set of really costly platinum cufflinks yesterday. She explained that she had meant to wait until the wedding to give me her gift, but she couldn't wait to see the expression on my face. For the fact, they were extremely expensive, and she makes significantly less money than I do. It wasn't about the material value of the present, it was about its sentimental significance. I knew it would have burned a hole in her purse, but she went ahead and did it. She told me she was grateful to have me in her life because she thought any other man in my position would not have taken her back after what she had done. But I did. I placed her and the family first. She wanted me to know how grateful she was for everything I did for her, and the cufflinks were her modest mark of appreciation. I'm not normally an emotional guy, but I ended up crying since our relationship has been a long road, and we've finally arrived at a point when everything feels perfect. Also, I'm not complaining, but most of the time, I've been the one to give such expensive gifts. Not just to Meredith, but to everyone in my family. I had never been on the receiving end before, so this was a big deal for me. I told Meredith just how grateful I was for her. I also told her that, at the end of the day, we're a team, and our priority will always be family. I told her, and I will say it again, I am grateful to have her in my life. Parents neglected me my whole life, never noticed I moved away, and now they're demanding I return to take over their responsibilities. I'm the youngest of 5, and when I say youngest, I don't mean by a small margin. There's a 7-year difference between me and my next sibling. To be honest, I always felt invisible growing up. My brothers all had their own problems, and I believe my parents assumed that because I wasn't sick or struggling with mental health difficulties like the rest of them, I didn't need them. I'm not trying to play the victim, but this is the truth. The others were constantly in and out of hospitals, attending treatment sessions, and so forth. Meanwhile, I was right there. They call it the glass child, right? You can see me, yet you don't seem to see me. For the most part, I was okay with it. I spent a lot of time alone, playing video games, reading, and keeping to myself. I had to learn how to entertain myself because there was no one else there to do it. It wasn't like I was supposed to care for my siblings or anything. Other individuals have told me that they had to give up their childhoods to care for their siblings and sisters, but that was not the case with me. My folks handled everything, so give credit where it's due. But because I wasn't making problems or living in perpetual crisis mode like my siblings, I sort of slipped through the cracks. I didn't need aid, so I didn't get it. I don't believe my parents did it on purpose. It's simply that when you have 4 children coping with health issues, the healthy one becomes an afterthought. They were constantly so preoccupied with hospital visits, doctor's appointments, and school meetings for the others that I became the kid who didn't cause trouble. And thus didn't get noticed. I was invisible, not in tragic movie scenes, but in a practical we've got our hands full way. When I was approximately 9, I made 2 friends, Mia and Clara, who were in essentially the same situation. Their families were not wonderful either, and we just discovered each other in an unsaid way. We clicked. We knew what it was like to be neglected or left out, and that connected us. They grew to resemble my genuine family more than my own family ever did. We were inseparable throughout high school and remained so even after graduation. We attended college together, graduated together, and then moved to a new state together. It was as if we had created our own small family out of the scraps that our real families could not provide for us. After I left home, my parents and I didn't talk much. That wasn't surprising given how seldom we chatted while I was still living there. My mother would occasionally text me, primarily with small conversation like, "How's school?" or "What are you doing for work?" Our connection was quite surface level, but it was an improvement over my teenage years. Back in high school, we scarcely spoke. I didn't expect much from them, nor did I ask for much. A phone call from my mother last year highlighted how distant I felt from my parents. It was a few days before Thanksgiving, and she called unexpectedly. We never called each other, so I knew something was amiss. I had last spoken to her on the phone about a year before. When she told me the time and location of one of my sister's funerals, I realized how little we had communicated. So she phones and asks what time I'm coming for Thanksgiving. I immediately sat there like, wait, what? Since I had no idea they were doing anything for Thanksgiving. It wasn't like we had a huge family tradition. In fact, in my entire childhood, I can recall only 3 occasions when they attempted to celebrate Thanksgiving or Christmas. It was simply not a thing in my family. I told her that I already had plans. I mean, I was going skiing with Mia and Clara, so I couldn't simply drop everything and come over. Plus, I live 2 states away, and if I were going to come, I would have had to purchase a plane ticket months in advance. But she acted as if I was simply being tough. Then Mother started guilt-tripping me, saying she was going to be alone because my father was going to spend the day seeing my brother in the institution. The institution is a 2-hour drive away, so my father would be gone for the majority of the day. I got it. But she gave me 3 days' notice. 3 days. And I was expected to simply show up and make her feel better? I told her I couldn't come, and she got upset, saying I didn't care about the family or whatever. I emphasized that I already had plans, and she hung up on me. After the call, I sat there for a while, feeling both guilty and irritated. Like, I hadn't heard from them in ages, and now I'm the bad guy for not returning home for Thanksgiving? I scanned over our past texts to ensure I hadn't missed anything, but there was no mention of Thanksgiving or wanting to see me. She threw it on me at the last minute, as if I was meant to drop everything and go. I ended up texting her later that night, stating that I had a ski trip planned for Christmas and wouldn't be able to attend, but I'd love to get up with her and Dad after the new year. You know, trying to be polite about it. She didn't respond. I was still trying to shake off the strange feeling a few days after Thanksgiving. You know when something just bothers you and you can't figure out why? That's how I felt about my mother's attempt to make me feel awful for not coming home. She phones me out of nowhere and guilt-trips me for not being there, but she never told me they were celebrating Thanksgiving. It was as if they expected me to be a mind reader. Anyway, by then, I'd very much moved on. I was preparing for a ski trip with Mia and Clara. We had been planning it for months, and I was quite enthusiastic. The 3 of us hadn't taken a good vacation in a long time, so we were excited to just hang out and relax. Then, out of nowhere, I received this text from my father. Now, my father rarely texts me, so I assumed it would be crucial. Instead of saying something fair, he says, "If you don't come home for Christmas, I'm stopping your college payments." At first, I laughed. Like, what? I graduated 3 years ago? What are my payments? It was so unexpected that I had to read it again to ensure I hadn't missed anything. I wondered if he was confused or talking about someone else. So I texted him back, informing him that I had already graduated and that if he thought he was still paying for my tuition, he should check his bank account because someone was scamming him. I assumed that would be the end of it. Honestly, I expected him to feel silly once he realized I wasn't in school anymore. But no. A few hours later, he sends me another text, this one accusing me of being greedy and ungrateful. He said a lot about how much they had sacrificed for me and my brothers, and how I didn't appreciate any of it. Okay, first of all, I never asked them for anything. Second, I had no idea they were paying for my college because my grandmother had already covered it. She told me straight out that she didn't want my parents to interfere with my education, so she took care of everything herself. So, obviously, I had no idea what my father was talking about. At this point, I'm pretty angry. Like, I get if they're stressed out about my siblings, but guilt-tripping me over something they didn't do? That's an entirely new level. So, I responded back as politely as I could, saying something like, "I'm sorry you feel that way, but Grandma paid for my college. I'm happy to catch up after the holidays, but I already have plans." I assumed that would shut it down. But no, my father chooses to go full drama mode and starts texting me about how I've abandoned the family, how I'm turning my back on them, and that he's done helping me if I don't make an effort. By this time, I'm just gazing at my phone, like, what is going on? Have you abandoned the family? I've been living alone for years, and they haven't even noticed. And now I'm the terrible person because I refused to drop everything and rush back for Christmas. I tried to ignore it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. I became increasingly irritated as I thought about it. It was as if they hadn't spoken to me in months, hadn't bothered to check in or ask how I was doing, but when they needed something, it was my obligation to put things right. I was supposed to be their backup, or something. I called Mia and Clara to vent. They both agreed that it sounded like my parents were only using me as a guilt trip. Mia said that they probably wanted me back home for Christmas so they wouldn't feel awful about themselves, not because they wanted to see me. Clara, as usual, did not hold back and bluntly stated, "Screw them, you don't owe them anything." I chose to sleep on it and cool off before answering again. But as I lie there, my phone vibrates again. It's my father. This time, the text is brief and frigid. He says, "If you don't come home, don't bother coming back at all." I read that and felt completely numb. So, how did we get here? How did we go from not speaking for months to virtually disowning me because I wasn't coming to Christmas? It did not even feel real. I looked at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to retaliate and say something horrible. I wanted to confront them about all the times they disregarded me and made me feel as if I didn't exist in that house. However, I did not answer. I put down my phone, rolled over, and attempted to sleep. I didn't want to be dragged into any major family turmoil just before the holidays. I didn't want to cope with the guilt trips, accusations, or whatever else they could throw at me. So I just left it. The next morning, I received more texts, this time from my mother. She didn't say much, just that they were disappointed in me, didn't understand why I was so aloof, and hoped I would reconsider. I couldn't help but giggle a little because far away didn't begin to describe it. I'd been distant all my life, and they were only now noticing? I ignored the texts again and concentrated on preparing for the ski trip. Mia and Clara were excited, and I was too. It felt like the ideal vacation from all the family drama. We left the next day, and for the first time in a long time, I forgot about my parents. I did not feel guilty. I did not feel sorry. I simply felt free. Of course, things couldn't remain peaceful indefinitely. Just when I thought I'd moved on, I received another message from my mother, this time in the middle of the journey. She was not giving up. She stated that if I did not return home soon, they would have to begin making decisions about the future without me. Decisions that I would not like. That's when something clicked. They were planning something greater than Christmas. Perhaps it had to do with one of my brothers or something about the house. I had no idea what was going on, but it soon became clear why they were pushing so hard. They wanted me back for more than simply the holidays. That knowledge felt like a punch in the belly. All this time, I assumed they were just clinging or lonely. But this was never about me. Not really. It was about what they could get out of me. I was finished. So after that whole drama with my folks trying to guilt trip me, I assumed things would calm down. I ignored their texts, went on the ski vacation, and tried to remember that I had my own life and goals, and I was not going to let them drag me back into their world of guilt and expectations. But, of course, it was not so easy. I was back home, just getting back into my routine, when I received a message from my older brother Jake. Now, I hadn't spoken to Jake in months, probably longer. Jake was the one sibling who, as we grew older, I thought would understand me. He wasn't as sick as my other brothers, so I always assumed we may have had something more. But he was always too caught up in his own life. Whatever. Anyway, seeing his name appear on my phone astonished me. His message was straightforward. "Hey, we need to talk." I had no idea what he wanted, but I was not in the mood for more family turmoil. I said, "About what?" A few minutes later, he calls me. I contemplated whether to respond, but curiosity got the best of me. So I pick up the phone, and before I can say hey, Jake dives right into it. "Mom and Dad have been talking about making you the legal guardian for one of the boys when they're gone." I swear I almost dropped my phone. My heart was beating, and I sat there shocked for a few seconds. Was this some sort of joke? Like, after all these years of hardly being present in my life, they're just going to put this obligation onto me? "What the hell are you talking about?" I eventually managed to ask. Jake sighed, as if I were the one acting ridiculous. "You know how things are with Mom and Dad. They've got a lot on their plate with the other boys, and they're not going to be around forever. They need to know someone's going to step up and take care of things when they're gone." I could feel my blood boiling. And they think that someone is me? After everything? After all the ignoring and guilt tripping, they just assume I'm going to drop everything and take over their mess. Jake didn't seem to get why I was unhappy. "Look, I know it's a lot, but you're the only one who's really stable. The rest of us, we've got our own issues." I nearly laughed. "Yeah? Well, maybe you guys should have thought about that before now. I didn't even know this was a thing." "They never told me they were going to talk to you about it," said the man, "but I figured you should know before they tried to spring it on you." I was pissed. This wasn't just about Christmas or Thanksgiving anymore, it was bigger. They were preparing something long-term, and they hadn't thought to contact me until now, when it was convenient for them. They hadn't spoken to me in years, and now they expected me to take responsibility? Number just no. So, what? They've been discussing this behind my back, I questioned, still trying to figure it out. Like they just decided I'd take on the responsibility without even asking me? Yeah, pretty much, Jake agreed. They've been planning it for a while. I sat in silence for a minute, staring at the wall and trying to digest everything. Part of me wanted to shout at Jake, but I knew it wasn't his fault, he was simply the messenger. But that didn't change the fact that my parents were ready to screw me down big time. They weren't simply asking for a favor, they asked me to spend the rest of my life cleaning up after them. I was done being invisible, but I wasn't going to be their backup plan now. So, what am I supposed to do? I inquired, feeling more discouraged than anything. Just drop my whole life and move back home? Give up everything I've worked for? Jake did not have an answer for that. He attempted to talk about how difficult things were for our parents, how they were straining to keep up with my brother's care, but I didn't care. I had spent my entire life being shunted to the sidelines because I was not a problem. Now they wanted to utilize me since I was the only one who had my life in order. It was unfair. I'm not doing it, I responded, interrupting him mid-sentence. I'm not going to be their backup. They didn't give a crap about me for the last 25 years, and they sure as hell don't get to make me responsible for everyone now. Jake remained silent for a moment, then said, I get it. I do. But you're still part of the family. Family. This word made me want to shout. Yes, I was a member of the family, but only when it was convenient for them, only when they needed it. When I was younger, they didn't care if I was fine or if I needed assistance. But now that they were afraid of what the future contained, I was exactly what they needed. Tell them I'm not interested, I replied. And don't bother calling me about this again. I hung up before Jake could reply. For a long, I sat there, staring at the phone, trying to relax. I felt as if my entire life had been leading up to this moment, this time when I'd finally had it. Enough with the guilt trips. Enough with the deceptive texts. Enough with being ignored and then used. I wasn't going to be their safety net anymore. Jake and my parents did not contact me for several days. It was almost as if they were waiting for me to wake up, to alter my opinion, and to be the good daughter they had suddenly decided I should be. But I wasn't about to move. I was not going to let them throw their issues on me simply because I was the last one standing. Then a letter arrived in the mail. It was from my mother. She hadn't even called. She had simply sent a letter, as if we were living in the 1800s or something. The letter was lengthy and rambling, full of the same guilt-tripping nonsense I'd heard before. She went on about how much they needed me, how difficult things were for them, and how they had no idea what they would do if I didn't help. The final part, however, irritated me greatly. My mother wrote, We're not asking for much, Olivia. We just need to know that when we're gone, someone will step up for the family. That's when I recognized what this was all about. They didn't care about me. They just worried about making sure their mess was cleaned up after they left. They didn't want me back because they miss or love me. They wanted me because I was convenient and the only one who hadn't broken apart. I crumpled the letter and tossed it in the trash. I was finished. Update 1. After receiving that letter from my mother, I believed I had reached my limit. What else could they throw at me that I hadn't seen? I was already tired of their guilt trips, manipulations, and attempts to hold me accountable for their mess. But of course, I was mistaken. It wasn't finished, not even close. A week or two after I discarded the letter, I received another call. This time, it came from a number I did not recognize. I almost didn't pick up, but something inside me was intrigued. Maybe it was Jake again, or one of my parents trying a different number after I ignored theirs. Regardless, I took up. Hey, Olivia, it's Sarah. Now Sarah is one of my sisters. We were never very close. I mean, she was constantly dealing with her own issues, hospitals, therapists, everything. I felt sorry for her growing up, but I didn't truly know her. We were essentially strangers living under the same house. So hearing from her now, after everything, seems strange. Hey, I replied, unsure where this was going. Look, she said. I know things have been kind of rough between you and Mom and Dad, but I really need you to listen to what I'm going to say. I could already feel my stomach dropping. I thought, here it comes. Increased guilt. More attempts to draw me back in. What is it? I inquired, attempting to seem impartial while bracing myself for whatever was coming. She took a big breath and said, They're not doing well. Like, really not doing well. Dad's health is going downhill fast, and they're freaking out because no one's stepping up to help with the boys. They're scared, Olivia? They don't know what to do." I did not say anything for a second. It's not that I didn't care. I did. I did not want to see anyone suffer, including my parents. But after everything, after years of them not caring about me, I couldn't simply jump in and fix things for them. I was not their band-aid. "I'm sorry to hear that," I stated with great care. "But I can't just drop everything. I have a life too, Sarah." She sighed, clearly frustrated. "I get that, but you're the only one who's in a position to help. Jake's barely holding it together, and you know what's going on with me and the others. There's no one else, Olivia." Desperate because they ignored this for years, I shot back, feeling my fury rise again. They let this all build up, thinking it would just go away. And now, because I'm the one who managed to get out and make something of my life, it's my responsibility. That's not fair, Sarah. "I know it's not fair," she continued slowly. "But this is where we are. They need help." And there it was again. Same old story. Same old guilt. No matter what I did or how far I tried to get away from it, they always found a way to bring me back. I could feel the strain growing inside me, the fury and animosity that had been simmering for years coming to a head. "I'm not doing it," I responded, my tone harder than intended. "I'm not going to be the one to clean up their mess. They didn't care about me when I was a kid, and they sure as hell don't get to come to me now just because it's convenient. I've got my own life. They need to figure this out themselves." When Sarah spoke again, I could tell she was hurt. "I get it, Olivia. I really do. But this isn't about you or me. It's about the family. It's about what's going to happen to the boys when they're gone. If we don't step up, who will?" That hit me hard. Not because I suddenly felt responsible, but because it reminded me of how imprisoned we all were. My parents had neglected me for years, forcing me to the sidelines, and now they were attempting to use me as an escape plan. And what about my siblings? They were caught in the thick of it all, just like I was. Only they lacked the strength to fight back. "I'm sorry," I repeated, gentler this time. "But I can't. I won't." There was a long silence, and I could sense her disappointment over the phone. But I was not going to give up. Not this time. I could not. "Okay," she finally said, her voice lifeless. "I'll tell them." She hung up before I could say anything further. I sat there for a while, staring at my phone, feeling both relieved and guilty. I was well aware that I owed nothing to my parents. But it still ached. It stung knowing that my family was falling apart and that I had no control over it. Perhaps I wasn't powerless. Perhaps I was no longer willing to sacrifice myself for them. A few days later, I received another letter from my mother. This time, things were considerably worse. She didn't even bother with greetings. She went straight to the guilt trip. She wrote about how disappointed she was in me, how I had let the family down, and how she couldn't believe I would abandon them in their time of need. She tossed in a lot of things about how difficult it was for her and my father, how much they'd suffered for us, and how she didn't know what she'd done to deserve such a selfish daughter. It was brutal, and for a little while, it worked. I felt that old, familiar sting of shame, the guilt I had felt my entire childhood. But then I remembered all the years I'd spent being invisible, all the times they'd forgotten about me, and all the times I needed them but they weren't available. And I knew it wasn't because they needed aid. This was about control. This was about them attempting to draw me back into their web, making me feel as if I owed them something. But I owed them nothing. Not anymore. I crumpled the letter and put it in the trash, just like the previous one. I was finished. I was done being their pawn. I was done allowing them to influence me. I had my own life now, and I was not going to let them take it away. The following day, I blocked their numbers. I also blocked Jake, just to be cautious. It was not an easy decision, but it was the only one that seemed right. I couldn't keep letting them bring me down and make me feel responsible for their troubles. They'd made their decisions, and now they had to live with them. For the first time in a long while, I felt liberated. Update 2. Blocking their numbers seemed like a relief, like a big weight had been removed from my shoulders. For the first time, ever, I had control of the situation. I wasn't sitting there expecting another guilt-inducing message from my mother or a surprise call from Jake. It was quiet. Peaceful. But, of course, that did not endure. About 2 weeks after I blocked them, I received a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and honestly, I assumed it was a delivery or anything. But, as I opened the door, there she was, my mother. Standing on my porch, as if she had every right to be there. I'm not sure how she found me. I hadn't exactly been hiding, but I didn't expect her to just walk up at my apartment. She looked different. I suppose I'm older now. Or perhaps it was just stress. In any case, I could see she'd had a difficult time. But I didn't feel sorry for her anymore. "What are you doing here?" I inquired, keeping my voice as calm as I could. She did not respond right away. She stood there staring at me as if she didn't recognize me. Eventually, she spoke. "We need to talk, Olivia?" I exhaled. "No, we really don't. I've said everything I needed to say. I've made my decision." She took a step forward, as if she was about to enter, but I stood in the doorway and blocked her. I was not going to let her in and turn this into another guilt trip. "Please, just listen," she continued, her tone softening. "Your father's getting worse. He's in and out of the hospital, and we don't know how much time he has left. I don't know what to do, Olivia." There it was. The card she'd been hoping to play. The "your father is dying" card. She didn't state anything directly, but I knew she was hinting at it, and I am not heartless. I did not want my father to suffer. But after everything they'd put me through, I couldn't just abandon everything and rush to their side. "I'm sorry," I murmured, trying to keep my voice steady. "But this isn't my problem. You and Dad have had years to figure this out. You can't just show up now and expect me to fix everything." She looked at me as if I had hit her. "I'm not asking you to fix anything, I just need you to be there, for the family." "For the family?" I asked, nearly laughing. "What family? The one that ignored me for 25 years? The one that only talks to me when they need something? That's not a family, Mom. That's just manipulation." Her eyes widened, and I wondered whether she was going to disagree with me. But instead, she started crying right there on my doorstep. She burst into sobs, and I didn't know what to do. I wasn't going to welcome her in, but I also couldn't stand there and watch her cry. "Look," I whispered softly. "I completely understand how difficult this is for you. But I am not your backup plan. I'm not the person who will step in and make things right. You made your decisions, and now you must live with them." She dried her eyes and looked up at me, and I could see the rage begin to replace the sadness. "We did our best, Olivia. You don't comprehend what it was like to raise all of you and deal with everything. We didn't have time for you since we were focused on keeping everyone else alive." There it was. This is the excuse. I had heard the same excuse a million times before. "And that's not my fault," I added, my voice firmer. "You made the choice to have 5 children. You choose to focus on everyone else and leave me behind. It was your decision, not mine. And now you're making me feel guilty about it? I will not do that, Mom. I will not." She stood there for a long time, not saying anything and staring at me as if she didn't recognize me anymore. And perhaps she didn't. Maybe in her mind, I was still the tiny kid she could overlook because I wasn't causing a problem. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I was done being invisible. Eventually, she spoke. "Is that it? Will you simply ignore us?" I shake my head. "Number you turned away from me a long time ago. I'm finally walking away." She had nothing to say about that. She just turned and walked away, returning to her car. I watched her leave, experiencing an odd combination of feelings. Part of me was sad, but the majority of me felt liberated, as if I'd finally let go of something I'd been holding for years. Something I should have let go of long ago. After she departed, I went back inside and sat down, trying to digest what had just transpired. I wasn't angry anymore, I was not even hurt. I was just finished. I'm done with the guilt, the manipulation, and the continual feeling that I wasn't enough. I was not going to be their backup plan. I was not going to be their last option. I had my own life to live, and I was not going to let them drag me down any longer. The following couple weeks were quiet. I didn't hear from anyone, no calls, letters, or anything. And, honestly, that was the best I had felt in a long time. I focused on my career, my friends, and my life. I wasn't glancing over my shoulder, waiting for their next communication. I was no longer living in the shadow of their expectations. Then, approximately a month later, I received an email. This time, it's from Jake rather than my mother or father. It was brief, only a few sentences, but it contained everything I needed to know. "Dad passed away last night. I thought you should know." I stared at the email for a long time, unsure how to react. I wasn't astonished, I knew it was coming. But I did not feel sorry either. I didn't feel much of anything. I considered answering. I considered calling Jake, asking how he was doing, and maybe even giving my condolences. But then I realized that this was simply another stage in the same cycle. Another opportunity for them to bring me back in. And I was not going to fall for it this time. I closed the email without responding and continued on with my day. I wasn't a part of their world anymore, and I was finally comfortable with it. My sister discovered she wasn't Dad's daughter and left us for her biological father. Now, she has returned for Dad's inheritance. I never imagined I'd be writing something like this, but I really need to get everything off my chest and perhaps gain some outside perspective. This matter has been bothering me for years, and it has only gotten more convoluted. My sister Lisa's wedding 5 years ago devolved into a complete disaster that nearly ruined our family. It's still difficult to discuss at times, but I need to describe everything from the beginning so that it makes sense. I was 28 at the time, and Lisa was 25. We were always really close, like abnormally close, according to most people who knew us. We were practically inseparable as children, despite the fact that I was 15 months older. I sort of took that connection for granted. We did almost everything together. We exchanged clothes, generally without asking, had the same pals, and were constantly in each other's business. Our mother used to say she couldn't bring just one of us somewhere because we were a buy one, get one free group. Thinking back on our adolescent years makes my heart hurt a little. We actually did everything together. For example, we might wake up at 2 a.m. on a school night, lying on my bed, eating forbidden food we'd hidden from Mom and discussing the most ridiculous topics. We even devised a strategy for covering one another's backs. If Lisa decided to attend to a party that our parents would absolutely not approve of, I'd pretend she was studying at my friend Sarah's place. When I wanted to meet up with a guy I was seeing, who, looking back, was a bit of a jerk, she'd tell Mom and Dad I was in the library. We were pretty excellent at being partners in crime, so we never got caught. The amount of time we spent arranging our future weddings was just insane. Lisa was preoccupied with having the perfect spring wedding. She desired cherry blossoms everywhere. She even wanted to marry in a cherry blossom orchard. She'd spend hours showing me photographs of beautiful Japanese gardens and discussing how she'd reproduce the entire feel. Meanwhile, I was determined to have a highly dramatic winter wedding with fake snow and icicle lights everywhere. We used to joke that we'd have to marry 6 months apart so we could both be maids of honor at the other's dream wedding. It's ridiculous to think about right now. If someone had told me how things would turn out back then, I doubt I would have believed them. When Lisa got engaged to her college love James, it seemed like everything was falling into place. James was exactly the type of guy we'd discussed during our late-night sister chats. Nice, witty, and utterly devoted to Lisa. I was ecstatic when she asked me to be her maid of honor, even though we both knew it wasn't really a question. We spent hours looking through wedding magazines, making Pinterest boards, and visiting venues. It was like we were small girls playing wedding again, only this time it was real. Our parents split when we were teenagers. I was 16 and Lisa was 15. Despite their breakup, they had managed to keep a polite relationship for our sake. Mom remarried a beautiful man named Steve 3 years after her divorce. He was kind and compassionate, constantly making us feel included in their new life together without attempting to replace our father. Dad elected to remain unmarried, focusing his energies on growing his real estate development business. He always maintained that his daughters were all he needed in terms of family. Lisa's parents had agreed to split the costs of her ideal wedding equally. Dad had done exceptionally well with his business over the years, and he insisted on ensuring Lisa had everything she wanted for her special day. "My little girl only gets married once," he would add, beaming with delight as we showed him the plans. The issue began 2 weeks before the wedding. Lisa and I were at Mom's place sorting through old family photos for the reception presentation. We wanted to include a lot of childhood photos, including Lisa and me in matching Easter outfits, family holidays to the beach, and Dad teaching us how to ride bikes. We were in the attic, surrounded by old boxes and memories, when Lisa discovered a stack of letters tied together with a fading blue ribbon. We initially assumed they were love letters from our parents' childhood. Lisa began reading one aloud, giggling, but her voice soon drifted off. Her face turned pale, and her hands shook. The letters were from Mom to a man named Michael and were written around the time Lisa was conceived. They described their affair and Michael's urgent request to be a part of the baby's life, which turned out to be Lisa. I will never forget Lisa's expression as she realized the truth. She'd always been very close to Dad. Lisa was Dad's little shadow as we grew up, whereas I was more independent. She followed him around his workshop, learning about the tools and assisting him with projects. She even chose to study business in college with the goal of eventually taking over his real estate company. The confrontation with Mom was explosive. Lisa rushed into the kitchen and demanded answers. Mom burst into tears after looking at the papers. Through her tears, she disclosed everything. Michael had been her coworker, and they had a brief affair at a difficult period in her marriage. When she discovered she was pregnant, she chose to remain with Dad and never notified anybody about Lisa's true paternity. She implored us to understand that she was young, afraid, and simply wanted to protect our family. Lisa was adamant about telling Dad the truth before their wedding. I attempted to persuade her to wait until after the wedding, concerned about how this might impact her big day. "How can I walk down the aisle with him, knowing I've been living a lie my entire life?" she was arguing. "How can I let him give a father of the bride speech when he's not even my real father?" I should have backed her decision more instead of attempting to protect everyone's feelings. She had the right to know the truth, and I was wrong to suggest hiding it, even briefly. The day we informed Dad altered everything. We went to his place together. Lisa requested I accompany her for support. Dad was in his workshop, excitedly working on a surprise wedding present for Lisa. We later discovered it was a handcrafted jewelry box. When Lisa showed him the letters, he slumped down heavily on his workbench, the half-finished box forgotten in his grasp. Dad's reply was simultaneously devastating and impressive. Despite his obvious anguish and astonishment, his first concern was for Lisa. "Sweetheart," he said. "I need you to know something. Biology doesn't make a father. Love does, and I have loved you every single day of your life. Nothing will ever change that." He offered to still walk her down the aisle if she wanted him to, but Lisa was too overwhelmed by everything. She postponed the wedding, stating that she needed time to process. That's when things started to fall apart. Lisa got preoccupied with locating Michael. She spent hours searching online for every lead she could find. When she finally found him on social media, he was surprised and excited to meet her. Unlike Dad, Michael had never married or had any other children. He accepted Lisa into his life with open arms, and what began as a simple curiosity quickly escalated into something more serious. Lisa began to spend more time with Michael, learning about her true origins and family history. She learned that they both loved photography and had similar mannerisms. Michael showed her old family albums and told her she looked like her grandma and smiled like her aunt. With each new connection she made with Michael's family, she seemed to drift more away from ours. This is where I committed what Lisa considers an unforgivable transgression. I couldn't bear watching Dad suffer as the daughter he had raised for 25 years faded away. One evening, after Lisa had canceled another meal with Dad to spend time with Michael, I confronted her. I reminded her of how many times Dad had been there for her. I pointed out that, while Michael was her biological father, he hadn't sat through every dance recital or looked for monsters under her bed. "You don't understand," Lisa responded. "You get to be sure about who you are. You're Dad's real daughter. I've been living a lie my whole life. Every time I look in the mirror now, I wonder what parts of me come from a stranger." Our relationship deteriorated quickly following that chat. She accused me of siding with her father and failing to support her desire to discover her true identity. Within months, she had relocated to California to be closer to Michael. What truly devastated us was Lisa's decision to hold a tiny wedding ceremony in California, with Michael leading her down the aisle. She did not invite Dad or me. We found out about it after a mutual acquaintance shared some Facebook images. Dad tried to keep a strong face, but I could tell he was devastated. He had already purchased her wedding gift, which included not just the jewelry box he had been crafting, but also a hefty down payment on a house. He never asked for the money back, instead simply transferring it to her account with a note expressing his hope she would be pleased. For the next few years, I attempted to maintain contact with Lisa via social media and occasional texts, but she remained distant and cold. Meanwhile, I became much closer to Dad. He was depressed after losing Lisa, so I made an effort to see him on a daily basis and incorporate him as much as possible in my life. We enjoyed Sunday dinners together, and I began to learn about the real estate industry from him, not because I wanted to take over, but because I knew it made him happy to share his knowledge with someone who cared. 2 years ago, Dad began to exhibit signals that something was wrong. He would miss appointments, become confused with ordinary activities, and occasionally get lost when traveling to known locations. Following numerous disturbing instances, I persuaded him to consult a doctor. The diagnosis was devastating: early-onset Alzheimer's disease. The doctor said that, while medication could halt the pace, we should begin planning for the future while Dad was still conscious. That's when Dad resolved to get his affairs in order. He gave me power of attorney and opted to give me the majority of his assets, including his home, business holdings, and most of his savings. I attempted to persuade him to divide things more equitably, saying that Lisa was still his daughter in all the important ways. But Dad was adamant. "I'm not doing this to punish Lisa," he stated. "I'm doing this because you've proven yourself capable of managing these responsibilities. The business, the properties, they need someone who understands them and cares about them. You've shown that you do." Lisa learned about Dad's will last month from a family member. Suddenly, My phone was continuously vibrating with texts and calls from her. She explained that she had done a lot of soul searching and recognized she had been unjust to both Dad and me. She stated that she missed having her sister in her life and wanted to make things right. But then Mom began pressuring me to persuade Dad to change his will while he still could. She claimed that she deserved an equal share of the fortune because he had raised her as his daughter, conveniently ignoring that she had rejected the same relationship for the previous 5 years. She even stated that Dad's Alzheimer's diagnosis would render him legally incapable to make these decisions, hinting that she could challenge the will if required. The final straw came last week, when Lisa showed up unexpectedly at my residence. She burst into tears, stating her marriage was failing and that moving to California had been a horrible mistake. Michael, she said, was not the parent she had imagined. He was controlling and began forcing her to care for him in his old age because she was his only child. She asked me to help her relocate back home, saying she wanted to reconnect with Dad before his condition deteriorated. When I asked her specifically if her sudden wish to reconcile was related to Dad's fortune, she became defensive and angry. She accused me of greed and attempting to keep Dad's money for myself. "You've always been his favorite," she said angrily. "Ever since I found out the truth, you've been poisoning him against me, making sure you get everything in the end." The talk ended with her storming out when I informed her she couldn't just come back into our life because it was financially convenient. Lisa is now telling everyone who will listen that I manipulated Dad into leaving her out of his will. She's even reached out to her mother, with whom she had previously been aloof, in an attempt to persuade her to support her. Mom, to her credit, has remained silent, claiming that when she lied about Lisa's paternity, she forfeited her right to an opinion on Dad's decisions. I am split about what to do. Dad's condition is slowly deteriorating. He sometimes forgets the year and refers to me as Lisa. I want his final years to be calm, and part of me wonders if I should try to persuade him to amend his will merely to keep the peace. Lisa is still my sister, and I hate that money has caused this schism between us. But another part of me believes she made her decision 5 years ago, when she rejected Dad and cut us out of her life. Lisa's desire to reconcile solely because there is an inheritance at risk appears manipulative and disingenuous. Update 1. Wow. Thank you to everyone who took the time to comment and share their opinions. Reading through your messages has definitely helped me process things I wasn't even aware I was battling with. Many of you have questions and recommendations, so I wanted to provide an update on what has been going on. First, regarding the inheritance situation. I followed some of your recommendations and had another lengthy conversation with Dad about fully cutting Lisa out. I chose one of his good days for our conversation. His doctor said that with early onset Alzheimer's, you have these periods where everything is crystal clear, almost like in the old days. I reminded him that while Lisa had truly hurt him by selecting Michael, entirely cutting her out might be something he regretted later if he had a moment of clarity. We ended up speaking for hours. Dad began relating all of his recollections of Lisa when she was younger, such as how she used to follow him about his workshop with a tiny plastic tool set, pretending to mend things alongside him. He got quite upset talking about it, which was difficult to witness because Dad is not the crying kind. It made him understand that his current decision may have been motivated by hurt rather than reasonable thought. So we scheduled a meeting with his lawyer, which cost an absolute lot. Dad decided to create a smaller trust fund just for Lisa's future children's schooling. It was actually rather brilliant how he structured it. The trust can only be used for educational expenses, such as tuition, books, and other charges. This money cannot be used to finance flashy automobiles or spring break getaways. Dad also included a stipulation requiring Lisa to maintain frequent touch with him, at least monthly visits or calls, for a full year before the trust becomes operational. His logic made sense to me. He explained that he is still providing for his possible grandchildren, who should not be punished for this adult drama, while also realizing that I was the one who stood by him through it all. Furthermore, the contact requirement prevents Lisa from simply showing up, taking the money, and leaving. She must make a genuine effort to repair their friendship. If I'm fully honest, I believe it's more than fair given everything that has happened. It's also made me realize that I've been harboring more anger about this whole issue than I imagined. My therapist thinks it's acceptable to feel betrayed by Lisa, but I should work on processing these sentiments in a healthy way rather than allowing them to gnaw at me. She's probably correct, but it's difficult when new drama is springing up every other day. Also, in case anyone is wondering, Dad's new prescription appears to be helping with his symptoms. He's been having more good days than bad recently, which is a tremendous comfort. I've been recording him sharing anecdotes about our youth on clear days. The physicians advised that it might aid both him and us later on as his condition worsened. It's bittersweet, but at least we're making the most of our time together. Update 2. Okay, So a lot has occurred since my last update, and I'm still trying to digest it. I've been sitting here for over an hour, trying to figure out how to even begin describing this disaster. I suppose I'll simply dive right in. Yesterday morning, I received an unexpected Facebook message from Lisa's biological father, Michael. At first, I considered deleting it without reading it, assuming it was simply more drama. But something compelled me to open it. Thank God I did, because what he revealed drastically transformed my perspective on the problem. Michael has been feeling bad about his involvement in all that has happened. He claimed he should have told us the truth months ago, but he was frightened of losing his connection with Lisa. Lisa had apparently been lying to everyone about her new life in California. Their father-daughter relationship isn't as fantastic as she makes it out to be. It's actually been extremely stressful over the past year. According to Michael, Lisa has been urging him to sell his house and participate in a business initiative she and James are interested in. When he declined, she began guilt-tripping him about how many years of parenting he owed her. He claims she has gotten increasingly manipulative, even attempting to persuade his sister to urge him to take out a second mortgage. The business venture turns out to be a rather dodgy multi-level marketing scheme that James fell into after leaving his job last year. But wait, things get worse. Michael also revealed that Lisa and James were having major marital issues. They appear to have been discreetly separated for the last 3 months. James moved out after they had a heated argument about money. They're literally drowning in debt because of this MLM bullshit. Lisa never informed any of us about this. She's been maintaining a picture-perfect image on social media while her life has been falling apart. I was still trying to digest everything when Lisa arrived at my place again this morning. This time, she had James with her. Yes, it appears that they are now working things out. They had prepared an entire presentation on Dad's estate and how unfair it was that I was receiving everything. Lisa kept saying that she had forgiven Dad for his rejection of her and was ready to be a proper daughter again. I let them speak for about 10 minutes until I had had enough. I got out my phone and began reading Michael's message aloud. You guys, I wish I had captured Lisa's expression. In seconds, she switched from pretending to be a kind, understanding daughter to panicking outright. James literally stood up and walked away in the midst of it. I believe he didn't realize Lisa had also been lying to Michael. Lisa was absolutely devastated after James departed. Her tears ultimately revealed the whole truth. Their ideal California life had been anything but flawless. James lost his work about a year ago and became associated with an MLM organization that sells health supplements. They spent their funds, maxed out their credit cards, and even took out personal loans to create their business. They now owe more than $100,000. Lisa claimed she had been attempting to acquire money from Michael for months, playing up the long-lost daughter story. When that didn't work, she figured she could persuade Dad to amend his will, and then coax me into giving her a larger percentage of the fortune. She explained that she was desperate and didn't know what else to do. To be honest, I felt sad for her, like my little sister was definitely in over her head and afraid. But another part of me was extremely enraged. She's been manipulating everyone the entire time, pitting us against one another while creating a fantasy story about her fantastic new life. The worst part is that she has been making Dad feel bad for abandoning her, despite the fact that she was the one who cut him out of her life. I informed Lisa that she needed to come clean to Dad. She began making excuses about his health, not wanting to upset him, but I quickly shut that off. I stated that either she tells him the truth or I will. She ultimately consented to speak with him, but only if I went with her. The conversation with Dad was intense. We caught him on a good day, thank God, and Lisa told him everything, about the debt, lying to Michael, James losing his job, and everything else. Dad was uncomfortably quiet after she finished talking. Then he did something that surprised both of us. He began laughing. He stated the entire thing reminded him of when Lisa was 7 and smashed his favorite coffee mug. Instead of simply telling him the truth, she spent a week fabricating a complex story about how the dog knocked it over, replete with a witness statement from her stuffed bear. Dad said he knew it was her the whole time but let her continue the story because he wanted to see how far she'd go. You've always been like this, Lizzie, he said. Creating complicated solutions to simple problems, just like your mother. He was not being harsh about it. Then he got serious and told her that while he understood her circumstances, lying and manipulating others was not the solution. For the first time in years, they were able to converse for hours. Dad agreed to help Lisa and James with their debt, but only if they moved back home, got real jobs, no more MLM, and went to financial counseling. He will pay off their debt, but they must sign an agreement to repay him with fair monthly payments. This money will come from his present assets rather than the inheritance. Regarding the inheritance, Dad is adhering to his original plan. The majority of the estate will still go to me, with an education trust for Lisa's future children, if any. But, honestly, after watching Lisa and Dad reconnect, I don't care about money anymore. Watching them begin to restore their connection is worth more than any inheritance. Lisa and James will begin their apartment quest tomorrow. They're looking into locations near Dad so Lisa can assist me with his care. She's already discussing how we can coordinate our schedules so that someone is always available for him. It's strange, a month ago, I'd have been skeptical of her unexpected helpfulness. But after everything that has happened, I feel she is being real this time. I understand we still have a long way to go. There is a great deal of trust to be rebuilt, and Lisa and James must work hard to get their lives back on track. But, for the first time in years, we feel like we might be able to be a genuine family again. Michael texted me this evening to see how things went. I told him the truth, and he appeared relieved that it was finally out. He stated that he still wants to be in a relationship with Lisa, but perhaps with healthier limits this time. I believe that is probably best for everyone. Someone commented on my previous post, stating that sometimes people have to reach rock bottom before they can begin climbing back up. Perhaps Lisa needed to lose everything to realize what was truly important. Dad used to say that the true test of a person is not whether or not they make mistakes, but how they deal with those mistakes when they do. I suppose we'll see if Lisa passes the test this time. Thank you for all of the prizes and encouraging remarks. Many of you have inquired if I plan to do another update. I probably will, once Lisa and James have settled in and we can see if any of these adjustments stick. Fingers crossed. Final update. First and foremost, Lisa and James returned to our neighborhood. They discovered a cute little apartment approximately 10 minutes from Dad's house. It's far smaller than their home in California, but Lisa claims it feels more like home. They've both gotten genuine jobs this time. There are no MLMs in sight. James works for a local company. It turns out that when he's not involved in get-rich-quick schemes, he's quite brilliant with computers. Lisa works as an office manager in a medical practice. The debt repayment plan with Dad is going well so far. They have not missed a single payment, and Lisa has been working additional hours to pay it off faster. I know some people in the comments thought Dad was being overly generous in assisting them, but it was the right decision. Seeing Lisa accept responsibility and seek to correct her mistakes has done more to improve their relationship than any penalty could have. The most significant difference has been in how we handle Dad's care. Lisa and I devised a plan in which we each take turns checking on him and helping out. She handles Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday mornings. Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday afternoons are my available times. We alternate Fridays. It's actually working very well. Dad receives consistent attention, and neither of us feel overwhelmed. Talking about Dad, his condition is, well, it is what it is. The physicians say the drug is slowing the advancement, but we can all see the effects. He currently has more bad days than good. He occasionally gets confused about which of us is which, or believes we are both teenagers again. Even on his roughest days, he appears happy with both of his daughters present. Lisa has been fantastic with him. She has this way of fitting in with whichever historical period he believes he's in, making him feel safe and understood rather than frustrated. Last month, we had a particularly difficult day when Dad couldn't recall that Mom had been unfaithful or that Lisa wasn't biologically his. He kept telling Lisa about their camping vacations when she was younger, and she just went along with it. Later, I discovered her crying in the kitchen and asked if she was all right. She informed me the camping excursions did happen, she just didn't recall them until Dad mentioned them. She claimed that she had spent so many years focusing on what Michael could offer her that she had almost forgotten how much Dad had already done for her. Michael's situation has also evolved. After Lisa's attempt to extract money from him became public, they separated for a few months. Lisa refers to their relationship as a coffee shop relationship. They meet for coffee once a month, keep things light, and avoid discussing money or obligations. It seemed to work well for both of them. Michael has even stopped referring to Lisa as his long-lost daughter, instead calling her simply, Lisa, which feels healthier. The inheritance status has not changed. Dad's will remains the same, with me as the major beneficiary and that education trust for Lisa's future children. However, it no longer feels important. Lisa and I discussed it the other day, and she said something that really resonated with me. She said, the inheritance was never really about the money. It was about who Dad trusted and valued more. I thought getting a bigger share would prove he loved me as much as you. Now I realize I was measuring the wrong thing all along. I realize this all sounds too ideal, like one of those cheesy Hallmark movies where everything works out in the end. Trust me, it is not flawless. Lisa and I still disagree from time to time. Dad still has really bad days. The debt isn't magically erased, and years of pain don't dissipate overnight. But we're all trying to do better. My parents refused to help fund my college, but now they want me to pay for my sister's lavish wedding. Am I the asshole for causing family drama by refusing? I, 34 million, am a software developer, and I earn much more than the rest of my family. My mother is a retired music teacher, and my father manages the neighborhood hardware shop. I also have a younger sister, Catherine, 30, who I haven't spoken to in 5 years. This is primarily because she is a bad person, spoiled and entitled. She's been that way since childhood, and my parents did nothing to dissuade or prevent her from becoming so. I endured her conduct for a long time, until 5 years ago, when she invited her new partner to Christmas dinner. I was hosting that year since I had recently moved into a new apartment and wanted to do something special. Catherine, as usual, wrecked the entire celebration by making superfluous remarks about my house's small size and age. She claimed it wasn't even in a good neighborhood and kept bragging about her new partner, who happened to be wealthy and lived on a large estate more than 10 times the size of my apartment. I could not handle it anymore. I reminded her that, unlike her boyfriend, I had moved into my apartment and was paying all of the rent on my own, without assistance from my parents, something neither she nor her boyfriend could say for themselves. I also told her that if she had such high standards, she might escort herself out of my house and never return. Unsurprisingly, she and her partner were offended because everything was true, and they fled. Since then, we haven't communicated. My parents have made numerous attempts to reconcile us, but I refuse to see her. The only reason I had a relationship with her before was because of my parents, but I couldn't take it any longer. It's been 5 years since our last conversation, and I recently discovered she's engaged to the same boyfriend she was dating back then. They're getting married in a few months. My folks, like fools, insisted on paying for the wedding site and decor so that they wouldn't be surpassed by the groom's parents. I think this was a very stupid move on their side. First, they should have recognized Catherine has costly taste, and her plans would be much out of their price range. Second, they couldn't outdo the groom's parents, who are significantly more financially secure. I'm not sure what they were thinking, but they had already committed, and the wedding is only a few months away. With my sister's lavish preparations, my parents immediately realized they couldn't afford everything and asked me for a loan a few days ago. Despite having a positive relationship with my parents for several years, I had to decline. This choice is based on an event that occurred several years ago. I'm on Reddit now because I'm questioning if I did the correct thing. Many of my family accuse me of being petty, but I disagree. When I was going to graduate from high school and enter college, my parents informed me that they wouldn't support my college tuition or any other fees. They explained that once I had turned 18, I was on my own. I was surprised by this because my parents had always been quite supportive of me, so this seemed out of character for them. They went on to explain that, back in their day, they had to fend for themselves after turning 18 because their parents were not wealthy enough to fund their costs. They believed that this experience had strengthened their resilience and independence, and they encouraged me to follow suit. They had not even set aside any money for my sister and me, insisting that we work our way through college, just as they had. My subject was not simple, and I didn't want to waste time working while attending college. I wasn't sure I'd be able to retain my grades while balancing both commitments. Furthermore, college is expensive, and no amount of part-time job will cover the expenses. I suggested getting a student loan, but my parents were against it. Even when I proposed borrowing money from relatives and repaying it later, they found it offensive that I would even suggest such a thing. They informed me that borrowing money was against their morals, calling it pathetic. I recall having a lot of disagreements with them on this topic in particular. Finally, I was able to persuade my grandparents to assist me in obtaining a student loan, which allowed me to complete my college education. I was really angry with my parents at the time because of their stance, but I finally forgiven them. However, this does not imply that I forgot about it totally. My sister never experienced this difficulty because she never attended college. She didn't think she needed to worry with it because she knew she'd either inherit dad's business or marry. That is exactly what she is doing right now, so congratulations to her for adhering to her plan. The basic line is that I recall what my parents said about borrowing money. When I recommended taking out a loan to pay my college tuition, they flatly refused, citing their morals. Borrowing money, according to those ideas, should still be avoided. When it came to my education funding, they just worried about their principles. However, now that Catherine wishes to marry and have a lavish wedding, they appear to have conveniently forgotten all of it. I thought that was quite hypocritical of them, and I wasn't going to let it slip. They created a lot of inconvenience for me back then, and I honestly don't believe my sister's wedding is more important than my college education. If I hadn't completed my degree and received the grades I got, I wouldn't have the job I do now or be able to aid them financially. When they asked me for assistance, I reminded them of what they had told me about loans and borrowing money, how it violated their beliefs, and all of the other explanations they had given back then. They appeared surprised since I don't think they expected me to remember anything after so many years, but I did. And I recalled everything quite well. After I finished speaking, they had nothing to say and returned home peacefully. I thought that was the end of it, but then a slew of relatives started calling me, informing me that the way I handled my parents was incredibly humiliating for them, and they were furious about it. My parents had evidently been telling everyone that I had changed after receiving so much money and were now hanging it over their heads, attempting to bring them down despite everything they had done for me. I didn't think this accurately represented what I'd done. I had merely fought against what I considered unfair, and that was it. As a result, I stopped speaking to my parents. If they honestly disagreed with what I said, they should have approached me directly rather than going behind my back and complaining to the rest of the family. I also chose not to talk with the rest of the family since, if they didn't understand where I was coming from, I had nothing else to say to them. I wasn't invited to my sister's wedding, so I didn't feel obligated to contribute in any way at all. I haven't spoken to my parents or anyone else in the family in the past few days. I've been fairly pleased about it because I don't believe I did anything wrong. However, 2 days ago, my parents paid me another visit, and this time they were really upset. They informed me that they had been denied entry to my sister's wedding, presumably due to my presence. I don't see how I could have caused such an incident, especially because I haven't communicated with Catherine in any way. According to my parents, when they told Catherine they couldn't afford the wedding and wanted her and her in-laws to help cover the expenditures of things they couldn't afford, she went insane. Catherine began pressuring my parents to arrange the money in some way because, at this point, going to her in-laws and asking for financial assistance would make her family appear very awful, which she did not want. She was somewhat correct in that if my parents were unsure whether they could cover the total cost of what they had promised, they should not have committed to it in the first place. She's generally spoiled and entitled, but I don't think she was wrong when she said this. Personally, I believe she and her fiancé should have paid the entire expense themselves because his family is wealthy enough to do so. However, if my parents had committed to something, they should follow through, and Catherine was correct in saying that they made her seem awful in front of her in-laws. So, I believe she had every right to stress out. I told my parents, emphasizing that I was not involved. I did not urge them to commit to something like this. They brought it on themselves and had only themselves to blame. At this point, I believe my sister's decision to cancel their invitation to the wedding was an overreaction. But then again, what did they expect of Catherine? She has always been this way and they, not I, are to blame. However, my parents were not prepared to hear any of this. They said that if I had just helped them out and lent them some money instead of being petty and harboring old grudges, they would not be in this situation right now. I thought it was really unfair of them to blame me, so I told them to go, which they did. But they persisted, and now the entire family has turned against me, accusing me of being self-centered and cold-hearted. Personally, I do not believe I have done anything wrong. But, anyhow, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding because my parents cannot afford it. Update 1. Hello. So I have decided to avoid touch with my complete family. Aside from my grandparents, both my father's and mother's sides of the family are currently unified against me, which is insane. Obviously, my mother's parents are no longer alive, but my father's folks support me. So far, they've been trying to keep the peace in the family, but even they're tired of the drama. Everyone in the family has had disagreements in the past, but I believe their hatred for me has brought them together. At the very least, I am delighted I was able to help the family. But I've blocked them all, and I don't want any trouble right now. Someone in the comments remarked that the true reason they all seem to despise me so much, why they need a reason to oppose me, is probably because they are jealous. That, I believe, is a legitimate point. I don't want to brag, but I'm doing much better than the majority of my family members, and I don't think they can take it. Growing up, I never really took anyone's counsel. Most of them advised me to pursue a business degree and take over my father's store because that's where the future is, rather than spending so much time on the internet. And guess what? That is how I make a living now. Not only am I far more accomplished than most of my cousins, but their parents appear to resent me. It just doesn't make sense to me because I believe families should celebrate and share each other's triumphs. But this has never been the case. It makes me sad at times, but I can't help it. Some folks are exactly like this. I'll bet my folks are already loving the fact that everyone is against me right now. They claim it was my fault that they were not invited to my sister's wedding. We haven't spoken since they last stopped by to accuse me of damaging their relationship with my sister, which I still don't understand. However, my grandparents have informed me that they are not speaking with my parents either. Since my grandparents are on my side, it demonstrates how ungrateful my parents are. My grandparents had helped them numerous times in the past, but they don't seem to remember any of it. That makes me glad because I didn't help them when they came to me. I believe they would have conveniently forgotten about it in the future. They take everything for granted, and it's past time someone teach them a lesson, even if it had to be someone as terrible as Catherine. Update 2. Hi. A truly interesting thing happened yesterday. I couldn't share it here earlier since I was so busy, but Catherine came to see me after I returned home from work. She arrived at my place about an hour later, which shocked me because, as I recall, we had not communicated in the previous 5 years. We do not have a nice relationship. I was very convinced she was here to talk about her wedding with me since, now that our parents aren't even invited, I assumed she needed money. However, she was wise enough not to begin with that. Instead, she informed me that she came here to apologize for what she had done in the past. She stated that she was about to begin a new chapter in her life, she was getting married, and that she wanted to formally invite me before anybody else as a way to make up for her previous behavior. She said she regretted being a brat, but it wasn't totally her fault because our parents never reprimanded her conduct. As a result, she grew up believing that her behaviors were socially acceptable. Now that she is older, she understands she was a terrible person and is attempting to make up to everyone she has mistreated in the past. She believed there was no better place to begin than with me, because as her brother, I had to put up with her the most. I let her speak, and after she concluded her brief statement, I told her I was fine with it and relieved she had finally come to her senses and apologized. However, I knew there was more to come and waited patiently. Of course, she finally began to tell me that she knew our parents had been cruel to me as well. She claimed she had heard from other relatives that our parents had been calling me selfish, callous, and petty because I refused to contribute to her wedding. She tried to trick me by telling me that I was entirely correct in my viewpoint because, at the end of the day, our parents had never assisted me after the age of 18. She said that they were the ones who had pledged to assist her pay for the wedding. As a result, it wasn't my obligation to bail them out when they got into trouble, especially because we didn't have a nice relationship in the beginning. I could sense she was working up to something, so I waited for her to arrive. After I hadn't said anything for a while, she suddenly acknowledged that, now that our parents weren't invited, they had withdrawn the money they had promised her for so long. She began yelling about how unjust that was, pointing out that they were the ones who had agreed to cover at least some of the expenses. She was too embarrassed to tell her fiancé that, following her argument with our parents, they would no longer be providing anything. This meant that his parents would have to pay for everything. Finally, she explained why she came to meet me. She begged if I would be willing to assist her only once, pledging that she would be grateful to me for the rest of her days. She even offered to sign a contract or do whatever it took to convince me that she would return the money, ideally by the end of the year. She simply wanted my assistance right now to spare herself the shame of having to inform her fiancé of the predicament. I found it fascinating that she was willing to commit to repay the money and even go through the process to make it official. However, I informed her that I needed time to think about it. Ultimately, despite her apology, we were still not on good terms, and our friendship was strained. I assumed she'd understand, but she turned out to be quite shameless. She said I was being too pricey, and that she wasn't asking for as much as her sister. That was generous of her, given that we hadn't had a connection in almost 5 years, let alone one approximating siblings. I had realized from the start that she was only coming to ask for money. Her apology was not sincere. I informed her that she was exactly like our parents, greedy and constantly looking out for herself. Of course, this infuriated her. She began shrieking at me, but I am not my parents, and I had no reason to tolerate her behavior. I quickly told her to leave my house because I would not tolerate it. She originally refused to leave, but I grabbed her arm and forced her to. She kept shrieking that she was going to call the cops on me for attacking her, but I didn't mind. Eventually, she departed. I was really upset about it for a long, but now it just seems like a ridiculously amusing thing, and I'm not going to let it worry me. Update 3. It's been a few weeks since my last update. I assumed that because my sister and I were still bickering, the invitation she issued to me had been cancelled. But today, I was pleasantly delighted to receive an invitation to her wedding. I didn't know how to make sense of it and felt strange about the whole affair, so I contacted her. She didn't react right away, but after a few hours, she called me back. When I thanked her for inviting me over the phone, she was really rude. I decided to ask her what was going on because I was perplexed. She informed me she meant her apologies that day and was sincerely striving to be a better person now. She had also arranged for the money alone, so she no longer required anyone's assistance. She wanted me to know that she wasn't just acting to get on my good side because I was wealthy, and she insisted on meaning what she said. She also added that our parents had made her understand how much of a brat she had been in the past. She was doing everything she could to avoid becoming one of them. At this time, I decided to ask her if she wanted to invite them to the wedding also. She assured me that, contrary to what they were saying, she had never uninvited anyone. She was only upset with them because they had put her in a tough situation. Apparently, my parents knew what my sister wanted for her wedding. She had informed them from the start that her ideas were somewhat ambitious, and she did not believe they would have enough money to cover everything. Despite this, they were overconfident about it. It would be awkward for her to reveal to her in-laws that her parents were only talking and couldn't afford what they had promised. The fact that they hadn't even thought things through and were so determined to compete with her in-laws disturbed her. Because she had been ranting at them, they decided she didn't want them at her wedding anymore and effectively uninvited themselves. They arrived at that conclusion on their own, despite the fact that she had not stated or hinted anything. Instead of addressing her and discussing it with her, they chose to tell everyone else their version of the tale. I have to acknowledge that it is quite problematic for them to go about telling people that their children are bad while refusing to openly address the issue with us when they had the opportunity. Of course, after they've said such terrible things about us to everyone else, we're not going to want to work things out with them. Even so, they'll find a reason to blame us. They are continuously trying to play the victim. I'm delighted my sister is finally starting to see this. Catherine informed me that the rest of the family has not alienated her in the same manner that they did with me. However, she is still pondering whether to invite them to the wedding, given that most of them appear to be solidly on our parents' side. They've been less harsh with her, attempting to explain why my parents were right, rather than directly blaming her. I believe this has something to do with the fact that my parents are too proud to apologize but not too proud to rely on their children in the future. Because my grandparents will no longer be able to assist them, they are most likely hoping to keep Catherine on their side by leaving that door open. That's just my theory, though. Whatever the case, it's evident they're treating Catherine differently than they did me. It's sad, but it's not unusual for me. At the very least, Catherine is beginning to see the reality. If she is truly trying to be a better person, I believe I am willing to give her a chance. After we spoke on the phone, she apologized for throwing a fit the other day and stated that she would be delighted to have me at her wedding. She believed that someone from the family should be present. I haven't decided whether I'll attend, but I'll wait a few days before responding. It's difficult to mend a connection that hasn't existed in 5 years, but I don't want to be the type of person who harbors grudges indefinitely. That type of thinking would only make me unhappy. I even discussed it with my grandparents, who said that if I decide to go, they will come as well. Previously, they weren't sure if they wanted to go, but given the circumstances, they believe that supporting Catherine is the proper thing to do. Update 4. I attended Catherine's wedding yesterday and led her down the aisle. Unfortunately, our parents did not apologize to her or reach out before the wedding, so they were not invited. She was really disturbed about this for several days before the wedding. She eventually reached out to me and asked if I would be willing to walk her down the aisle. She expressed a strong need for emotional support from others. I immediately agreed. Nobody deserves to be treated this way, especially by their own parents, for something so trivial. I thought it would be easy for my parents to emotionally cut me off because my sister had always been the golden child. But seeing this side of them, realizing they were too proud and egotistical to repair their relationship with the only child they cared about, was stunning. In some ways, they contributed to my sister's previous bad behavior. They never bothered to address her conduct, believing it was preferable to leave her be. It was their obligation as parents to guide her, but they did not care. While I don't believe it was totally their fault, they could have done something to prevent it, and didn't. Catherine asked me to walk her down the aisle, and I consented. She appeared really grateful, especially given that the few family members she had invited had declined. Everyone appears to want to support my parents and participate in the drama. I was able to persuade my grandparents to go, though. Catherine apologized to everyone in attendance before the ceremony. Her fiancé also apologized to me for his behavior several years ago. Catherine informed me that she had been open with her fiancé about the issue with our parents. He told her not to worry about the money and that he would take care of it. That's how they figured it out. However, she almost broke down before the wedding, upset that our parents would not be present. Her fiancé, our grandparents, and I persuaded her not to let them spoil her wonderful day. I wouldn't say everything is ideal right now, but we'll work on our relationship and attempt to improve things. I truly believe Catherine has evolved as a person. When I saw her yesterday, it felt like she was being completely honest about her desire to start anew. Some people may disagree with my decision to forgive her, but I believe I am doing the right thing. I caught my fiancé with my sister while pregnant, and tomorrow I'm exposing everything at our family gathering. I have reached the edge of what I can bear. I am 28, and have been with my fiancé for just over 3 years. We live together with my 4-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. 3 weeks ago, I found out I am pregnant again. At first, I was overjoyed, naive enough to think we were finally creating the stable family I had always wanted. He grew distant the very next day. He ignored my excitement, started coming home late, and kept his phone glued to him at all times. I began noticing strange calls and those discreet social media notifications that vanished too quickly. My gut told me to investigate. I almost wish I had not. He has been secretly hooking up with my older sister behind my back. She was the one I always tolerated even though she drags drama wherever she goes. She would hug me when relatives were around, pretend to be the supportive older sibling, then turn around and badmouth me to her friends. I never imagined she would crawl into my life this deeply. It felt like a slap in the face to read their messages calling me clueless for not noticing. He told her about the pregnancy before he was honest with me about his doubts, and they joked about how stressed I would be raising another child. My sister bragged that our entire family thinks she is the more interesting and more popular sibling. Meanwhile, I am just the quiet one who apparently deserves this. I do not know if they are still meeting in secret or if they just get a kick out of hurting me. My fiancé denies everything whenever I confront him, says I am hormonal, that my imagination is running wild. My sister keeps messaging me, telling me I should keep my mouth shut and stop being dramatic. I am done hiding my anger. My mother wants me to talk it out calmly, but how do I fix something so broken I can barely breathe? My fiancé thinks I will just accept this. He is counting on me being too shy or too pregnant to do anything. Tomorrow, I plan to blow this up in front of the entire family. We are supposed to have a casual get-together at our parents' house, ironically to celebrate my pregnancy announcement. I will gather my phone logs, the screenshots, and all those humiliating texts they sent each other. Once all the relatives have settled in, I will put everything on display. No more secrets. I might burn everything in the process. I might lose any chance of a pleasant co-parenting scenario. But I feel like I have no other way to reclaim my dignity. I have been crying nonstop for days, my nerves are shot, and all I get from my fiancé is either silent treatment or insults. My sister taunts me and acts like I am worthless. I see no reason to protect them anymore. I do not know what happens next. Maybe they will run off together. Maybe they will lie or twist things around to make me look insane. My fiancé has not contributed much financially, so I worry about affording my daughter and this potential new baby on my own. Yet I cannot pretend everything is normal. I have to protect whatever self-respect I have left. I am going to set my entire world on fire tomorrow. Part of me feels terrified, the other part is numb. Regardless, I am done letting them tiptoe around my heart. If they want my silence, they should have kept their betrayal better hidden. Let everyone see exactly who they are. That is all I have left. Update: I am still reeling from what happened. After writing my last post, I spent hours debating with myself about whether I should really go through with exposing them at our family gathering. A part of me was scared I would turn my whole life upside down forever. But I knew I couldn't keep letting them walk all over me while pretending everything was fine. I called my mom beforehand to let her know I was breaking up with him and to prepare her. When I arrived at my parents' house, I caught my fiancé with my sister while pregnant, and tomorrow I'm exposing everything at our family gathering. I have reached the edge of what I can bear. I am 28, and have been with my fiancé for just over 3 years. We live together with my 4-year-old daughter from a previous relationship. 3 weeks ago, I found out I am pregnant again. At first, I was overjoyed, naive enough to think we were finally creating the stable family I had always wanted. He grew distant the very next day. He ignored my excitement, started coming home late, and kept his phone glued to him at all times. I began noticing strange calls and those discreet social media notifications that vanished too quickly. My gut told me to investigate. I almost wish I had not. He has been secretly hooking up with my older sister behind my back. She was the one I always tolerated even though she drags drama wherever she goes. She would hug me when relatives were around, pretend to be the supportive older sibling, then turn around and badmouth me to her friends. I never imagined she would crawl into my life this deeply. It felt like a slap in the face to read their messages calling me clueless for not noticing. He told her about the pregnancy before he was honest with me about his doubts, and they joked about how stressed I would be raising another child. My sister bragged that our entire family thinks she is the more interesting and more popular sibling. Meanwhile, I am just the quiet one who apparently deserves this. I do not know if they are still meeting in secret or if they just get a kick out of hurting me. My fiancé denies everything whenever I confront him, says I am hormonal, that my imagination is running wild. My sister keeps messaging me, telling me I should keep my mouth shut and stop being dramatic. I am done hiding my anger. My mother wants me to talk it out calmly, but how do I fix something so broken I can barely breathe? My fiancé thinks I will just accept this. He is counting on me being too shy or too pregnant to do anything. Tomorrow, I plan to blow this up in front of the entire family. We are supposed to have a casual get-together at our parents' house, ironically to celebrate my pregnancy announcement. I will gather my phone logs, the screenshots, and all those humiliating texts they sent each other. Once all the relatives have settled in, I will put everything on display. No more secrets. I might burn everything in the process. I might lose any chance of a pleasant co-parenting scenario. But I feel like I have no other way to reclaim my dignity. I have been crying nonstop for days, my nerves are shot, and all I get from my fiancé is either silent treatment or insults. My sister taunts me and acts like I am worthless. I see no reason to protect them anymore. I do not know what happens next. Maybe they will run off together. My seal accused me of being ungrateful after a trip with my brother, claiming I owed her thanks for babysitting her own kids. My 22F brother, 35M, surprised me 6 months ago by planning a trip to Scotland for my birthday. He knew I've never traveled before and wanted to take me to my dream country. Due to tight finances, it was just the two of us, which I was okay with since at the time him and I were close. For context, my brother is married and has 2 kids under 6. His wife, 34F, had said she was happy for me and didn't mind holding down the fort for a week while we're on the trip. Her and I have never been close and quite frankly just tolerate each other for the sake of keeping the peace. She's never been a fan of how close my siblings are with each other. It all comes down to growing up in different family dynamics, Anyway, the trip was amazing and I loved every second of it. I was on such a high when we came back that I thanked my brother so many times for doing this for me until he told me to shut up. Lol, I thought everything was good and we resumed our lives normally. Imagine my surprise when I get a text 3 days after coming back from my SIL telling me off and calling me rude and ungrateful cause I didn't send her a text thanking her for babysitting on her own and having to do everything around her house for a whole week while I had fun with her husband. Yup, that's exactly how she worded it. I was flabbergasted. This is the same woman who smiled and told me to have fun on my trip, and now she's berating me for not thanking her for doing me a favor by taking care of her kids for a week. Am I crazy, or is that totally irrational and just weird? I told her I'm not sure taking care of your own children is babysitting, or doing someone else a favor, and she blew up at me calling me a terrible ungrateful brat and that I never show appreciation for anything. I was so confused by all of this and called my brother, but he doubled down and told me the trip wouldn't have been possible had she not volunteered to take care of their kids so we can have fun, and that I should be thanking her for doing it for me. I was and still am confused on why I need to thank a mother for taking care of her own kids. Anyway, to keep the peace I told her thanks for doing it, but she decided I wasn't being sincere and convinced my brother to go low contact with me. My siblings and my mom were confused by all of this but kept telling me to just bite my tongue and not stir the pot any further. But I'm just hurt and confused. My relationship with my brother has been strained since, and it's taking a toll on me. I just need outside opinions cause I'm genuinely confused on whether or not I'm the asshole in this whole mess. This is my first time posting and English is not my first language, so excuse any errors. Edit. I can't reply to everyone, so let me clear up a few things I feel I should have included. They do not share finances. She has never spent any money on anything related to me. Also, last year she took a trip with her siblings abroad as well, and no, I don't know if her siblings thanked my brother for watching his kids. Finances were tight as my brother was paying out of his own pocket and wouldn't have been able to take anyone else with us. This trip was a birthday gift, not a family trip, so no one expected to join. I did thank them both when I was first told about the trip, and I asked my brother if he was sure it was okay for us to go, and he assured me we were set and I only needed to have fun. I later learned that she didn't contribute anything to the trip and said she wouldn't have wanted to take a trip with me anyway. Hope this clears something's up. Update. 5 days later. Thank you to everyone for the insight on my previous post. The post kinda blew up in a way I wasn't expecting and the responses were overwhelming, but I now understand that I did not react correctly to her texts. This is a long update since a lot has happened. To clear up a few things before I continue with the update, a lot of you are fixated on the fact that I said finances are tight. I didn't mean their overall finances. They have separate finances, and from my understanding, they only share finances when it comes to their household and kids. Anything else they pay from their own pockets and don't interfere in what they spend their money on as long as the kids are good and household is running smoothly. So since my brother was paying for this trip on his own, he couldn't take many people with him as that would put a bigger financial burden on his personal savings. They're doing fine financially. They take family trips once a year. I did thank them both when I was initially told about the trip. My Sil later made a snide comment about how this was all my brother and she didn't contribute to the trip at all. Last year Sil and her siblings went on their own trip while my brother took care of everything and he was fine with it. My family dynamic is apparently confusing you guys, but we're 5 siblings that are very close and hang out regularly and have a close bond with our mom, especially since our dad passed away. We are from an Asian country and the culture here and the bonds between families are different from the West. To those who said maybe she's salty, I'm getting a trip when I've never helped them out. I babysat my Sil's babies for 5 days a week for months each time her maternity leave ended, and each time they stopped needing me to help out only my brother thanks me and that's fine with me. Sil has never thanked me or my siblings for anything we do for them. She says the fact that we're so eager and willing to drop everything to take care of each other is weird and unhealthy. I did thank her once I realized I should just keep the peace and tell her what she wanted to hear. Still, she didn't accept my thank you after I made the babysitting your own kids comment. I understand I was an for saying that now since a lot of you have pointed out that it was rude and that I'm not a mother and don't get it. But to be fair, her texts were full of insults. She kept doubling down on the fact that she was stuck babysitting because of me. Many of you asked why I wasn't offered the ticket and went on my own. In our culture, women, especially young ones, don't travel on their own without either a family member or their husbands. It's not about control but more out of protection for us, so going on my own wouldn't have been an option. On to the update. Strap in, this is a long one. So I talked with my mom to better understand the situation, since many of you said I'm not a mother and don't get it. And she said my Sil worded it wrong, but maybe she just wanted gratitude for helping my brother out cause being a parent isn't easy. I understand that I reacted to her messages wrong when I could have just said a simple thank you, but neither I or my mom understand why she was so aggressive towards me in her texts. The aggression is what made me become so defensive. I found out from my siblings and my mom that my brother only paid for the tickets and the accommodations, and that my eldest brother is the one that provided the pocket money for food and buying stuff on the trip, and that my siblings chipped in but didn't want the credit since my brother wanted this trip to be like a thank you for helping them out so much with their kids over the years, and that he had cleared it with his wife and she had given him the go-ahead. She also told me that he had asked Sil if she wanted to come with us on the trip and leave their kids with my mom, who was fine with that. But she declined as she and I aren't close and it would have been weird for the both of us. My mom told me that my brother actually asked her to check in every day with Sil to make sure all was well and to see if she needed anything. She also said my brother asked Sil's sisters to check on her as well. It turns out Sil had taken the week off of work. I didn't know that. And for 4 out of the 7 days we were in Scotland she dropped her kids off at my mom's, and the other 3 days when my mom called Sil said she had her sisters with her and didn't need any help, so what the hell was she so mad about? It's clear to me that she wasn't abandoned by my brother as some of you suggested. My siblings initially wanted to just keep the peace, but after I showed them my Sil's text they were surprised and appalled by her words. They thought this whole thing was a simple misunderstanding and now understand that it had become bigger and that my brother and I aren't talking. My sister decided to investigate and called my brother to understand what happened, and it turns out my Sil told him that my mom and siblings didn't check in on her at all, which is a lie. My sister even dropped off food for them twice. And that the kids were upset their dad left them and were throwing tantrums all the time, also probably not true, and that this wasn't what they had agreed on when he told her about the trip months ago. He was too busy trying to calm my Sil down to confirm with the family whether or not it was true. My sister then asked him if he'd seen the text his wife had sent me and he said he hadn't, but that Sil told him she'd just asked me for a simple thank you for all her hard work and that I blew up at her and told her she didn't deserve anything since she didn't pay for the trip and that she was entitled. He said he was hesitant about believing that since he knows I'd never outright disrespect someone like that even if I don't get along with them, but she insisted that it happened and that she had no reason to lie, and as her husband she needed his support, not his questioning, and that's why he sent me the text saying I needed to thank her. My sister then let my brother know about everything that happened and told him, more like demanded, that they apologize to me, which I didn't think was necessary. I just wanted my brother to talk to me again, and he sounded upset and told her he'll figure this out after talking to his wife. Spoiler alert, it didn't go well. Sil and my brother had a massive fight and he demanded to know why she lied and caused so much drama, and she broke down and told him that he was too close to me and my siblings and that she hated how the whole family babied me, I'm the youngest, and that his siblings' relationship with each other made her uncomfortable and she just wanted him to put a little distance between himself and us because her family isn't as close to each other, and kept telling her our close dynamic is weird and toxic. He told her her behavior is unacceptable and that she caused a rift between not only him and I but also him and the rest of his siblings as well because now they're mad at him. My brother did call me and he apologized for doubling down on what his wife said. He said it was already tense in their house and he was just trying to keep the peace and be supportive, but he shouldn't have treated me this way. When deep down he knew I wasn't at fault, he also let me know that for the time being Sil will go NC with my siblings and I while they go to marriage counseling and Sil goes to therapy cause her behavior wasn't normal. He sounded exhausted and defeated and I just told him we're all here for him if he needs us. He made it clear that the NC is only for my Sil and assured me he won't limit his contact with me and apologized for doing so without even talking to me first. I asked him if he'd like me to reach out to her and apologize for what I said and give her a sincere thank you, but he said no, that it was never about the gratitude to begin with and that it's apparently a bigger issue between them that they need to figure out on their own, that we shouldn't contact Sil unless she reaches out first as she doesn't want to have any contact with us. He also apologized for her language with me on the text, but I told him not to worry about it. Safe to say Sil's relationship with us is never going to be the same again after this, and to be honest I wasn't the biggest fan of hers, but I was civil and polite to her in the past cause my brother loves her and we've never had any issues prior to this. I do feel really guilty that all this happened because of the trip planned for me, but my siblings keep telling me it's not my fault. My mom says I should have just thanked my Sil and kept the peace instead of having this all blow up so much, but my siblings told her that even if I had apologized it wouldn't have mattered as my Sil would have found something else to cause a problem. But they also told me what a lot of you had mentioned in the comments, that saying thank you was the polite thing to do, and that taking care of kids full-time is not the same as babysitting them for a few hours and it would have been good to tell her she's appreciated. But they understand that I don't have the understanding of what it means to be a parent and that having someone basically verbally attack me wouldn't have made me reciprocate with kindness. And I get it, I was ignorant about it and I acknowledge that. There are a lot more details but that's the gist of it. Brother and Sil's marriage is strained and so is his relationship with us, but I hope that everything works out okay. I really love my brother and hate seeing him so defeated. Part of me wishes we never went on that trip because all this drama is draining. To clarify something, the only reason I was questioning the whole "I babysat my kids as a favor to you" is because I always see people criticizing fathers who say that and calling them out because kids are the parents' responsibility and not a chore or a favor for anyone. I thought this applied to both mothers and fathers, but perhaps I was mistaken because my only point of reference on this topic is what I see on the internet as I'm not a mom, and since a lot of you have said I'm the AH and that she deserved a thank you and a gift. I messed up the thank you part, but I did buy her a magnet for their fridge since she likes to collect them. I went a little crazy and brought back little souvenirs for myself and everyone else as well, and it would have been weird and rude to give her kids gifts and not her, so I got every single family member a small Scottish themed present. I was excited about being in Scotland, lol. Thank you all for your insights and advice. I really appreciate it whether you thought I was or wasn't the AH. All your opinions put things into perspective for me. Some comments were outright nasty though and I didn't think name calling was productive or necessary, but oh well, that's the internet. Also, if you saw the OG post on some podcast sub, it's because my friend saw my post and told me to post it there cause she's a fan of them and thinks the podcasters would be entertained by it. I wasn't seeking out validation from a different sub. She was just excited by the idea that her favorite podcast might read out a post about someone she knows. She's weird but I love her so I did it, that's all. My sister tried to reunite me with my ex for years, even ambushing me while pregnant. I cut ties for my family's safety. I began dating my brother's best buddy when I was 16. We were dating until I graduated high school, and when he proposed, I turned it down. There was a lot of drama, with my family urging me to reconsider because we may have a lengthy engagement or reunite later. My connection with my brother, 36, was strained for a while, but the one with my sister, 32, never recovered. She was sure that my ex was the best person for me, and it got terrible when she began dating my ex's brother. My siblings invited my ex everywhere, even family gatherings. I remained silent because he was also their buddy, but things got out of hand when my sister insisted on us reconciling. She tried everything, from setting up blind dates to forcing us to share a room over the holidays. Regardless of the event, my ex was always invited. I eventually had enough and asked my parents to intervene. They were honest with my siblings and stopped inviting my ex so frequently. My sister, unlike my brother, did not back down. It all came to a head when I met my spouse on a semester abroad. He was from a different university but the same country, and we simply clicked. It was beautiful, and we got engaged after a year together. Except for my sister, the rest of my family was pleased for me. She kept telling me that I was in the honeymoon phase and would grow out of it. Despite numerous confrontations and attempts to reunite with my ex, I warned her that if she did anything else, I would cut her off totally. My sister made me maid of honor for her wedding and planned for me to spend all of my time with the bridal party, which included my ex. She even set up one of her friends as my husband's date. We only learned this at the reception, when the unfortunate girl attempted to make a pass at my husband. My sister said that was fine because we weren't married yet and could explore things with other people. I left the party. The next day, I told my parents and brother that, while I wouldn't force them to pick, I would not speak to my sister again. If they attempted to mend our relationship, I would also cut off communication with them. My father and brother backed my decision, but my mother was upset and attempted to compromise. She stopped after 2 attempts. I have not spoken with my sister in 6 years. She's tried everything, from gifts to tantrums, but I refuse to participate. At family gatherings, I pretend she doesn't exist. Initially, she made sarcastic remarks or attempted to generate drama, but since no one supported her, she quit up. She had a meltdown when she realized she had been invited to my wedding but would not be participating in any preparations. My brother has expressed regret for putting up with her antics for so long, and his relationship with my ex has deteriorated. They still talk, but they're not as close as before. My mother's birthday was a few weeks ago, and I finally confirmed that we are expecting our first child. This is not the first grandchild, but it is the first granddaughter. Everyone was delighted, except my sister. My mother noticed her reaction and invited me around for tea a few days later. My instincts told me not to go, but I wanted to be positive. The first thing I saw when I arrived was my sister's automobile. Upon entering, I noticed my sister, her husband, my ex, and my ex's mother. They had planned an intervention, accusing me of using a childish tactic to ignore my sister for too long. My ex tried to defend his previous behaviors by calling them romantic, but his mother claimed I was hurting my sister, who only wanted the best for me. She apologized on my sister's behalf and insisted that I forgive her. As they chatted, I secretly texted my father, brother, and husband for assistance, staring at my mother in bewilderment. Then my brother-in-law had the guts to call me hurtful and insist on acting like an adult, because I was going to give birth to a baby. My mother started reading a letter about how upset she was that her daughters were not close. She admitted my sister's mistakes, but said they were well-intentioned. My sister responded with her own sorrowful letter, essentially repeating what the others had said. I didn't say anything till my brother came, apparently enraged. He took my belongings and expressed anger and disappointment. We sat in his car until my father and husband arrived. My brother continued to apologize as I sobbed uncontrollably. After leaving, I wrote an email to everyone involved, except my mother, containing my lawyer's contact information and explaining that I no longer wanted to be contacted. I warned that any additional efforts would result in my contacting the police. Nobody has approached me personally, but my father has said that my mother and sister are hysterical. They aim to make things right, with my sister even suggesting that she become involved in my baby's life, potentially as a godmother. My father is currently staying with my brother, and they both completely support me. However, some family members disagree with my decision. Some mutual acquaintances have even contacted me to express their concern for my sister, who is spreading accusations that my husband is keeping me away from my family. To clear the air, I wrote a public post outlining all that had happened. My sister, brother-in-law, and ex are now receiving harsh criticism, which, while not fully my intention, I believe is justified. My mother is still distraught, which makes me feel awful, but not as horrible as her intervention did. I recently decided to chat with my mother about laying ground rules for any future contacts. These include family therapy, set boundaries, no sharing personal information with my sister, and separate holidays. Most importantly, I informed her that if she did something like this again, I would cut her off permanently. She believes these stipulations are excessive, but has decided to comply. However, she mistook this for rapid access to baby news. I explained that it is a process, and she must demonstrate that she has changed. My father and brother refused to speak with my sister and continue to apologize for not intervening sooner. I forgave them because they demonstrated growth. My husband supports whatever option I choose, but my mother-in-law is concerned whether cutting off my mother completely is the best strategy. Ultimately, it is my decision, but I am split about what to do with my mother. Update number 1, I'd want to thank everyone for their help and advice so far. I'd like to provide some additional context indicated in my comments, as I can't respond to each one individually. My ex and I split up when I was 18, and he is now 37. The breakup occurred because I did not want to be married or engaged at the moment. My sister's desire to reunite with him derives from her fixation on the idea of us marrying brothers and being best friends. My mother has always been polite to my husband, but I'm beginning to feel it was all a ruse, which makes me quite sad. My ex has had other relationships since our breakup and has 2 children with one of them, but he is never married. My sister believes that his refusal to marry anybody else is romantic, since it demonstrates that he only ever intended to marry me. However, I've heard that his obsessive behavior extends beyond me. He behaved similarly with his children's mother. My sister has encouraged him to refocus on me. She believes his assistance will put her back in my good graces, allowing her to be a decent aunt. My brother started distancing himself from my ex after I expressed my displeasure with having him around all the time. This transition occurred while I was attending college and visiting my family during breaks. My brother also made an extra effort to welcome my husband, which affected his friendship with my ex, who felt betrayed. Now, my husband is one of my brother's closest friends, and my brother only communicates with my ex when it concerns my nephew, my sister's son, or to avoid being impolite. While both of my parents first appeared supportive of my desire to avoid my ex, it turned out that only my father really agreed. On the day of the tea party, my mother informed my father that she was preparing my favorite tea and pastries for some quality time, but he was unable to stay. My father left to visit my uncle, believing it to be a considerate gift. He is now outraged that he was misled. My husband tried to get along with my sister when they first met, but now he simply ignores her, assuming she is mentally ill. We don't know if she is, but her actions remain unacceptable. The tea party ambush, which featured my ex and his mother, was intended to help me face the root of my issues with my sister, according to their official version. To clarify a few facts, we are not Indians, are not extremely religious, and there is no income discrepancy between my husband and my ex. If anything, my husband might be slightly better off financially. Finally, my sisters-in-law, my brother's wife and my husband's sisters, are outraged by the scenario. My husband and his sisters intend to approach their mother about her comment. Meanwhile, my brother and his wife are thinking about going no contact, ENC, with my mother permanently. They have chosen not to allow her to see my nephews for a while. The more I think about it, the more I believe I'll have to go to North Carolina with my mother for my child's sake. My husband is devastated by the possibility that all of her previous contacts with him were fabricated, but he is even more unhappy that she made me cry and doubted myself as a nice person. While there are still numerous conversations to have with my family about my mother, I have decided to seek a restraining order against my sister and my ex. Semi-update: I spoke with my mother, but she insists she knows best. She labeled me a nasty person and stated that she would pursue grandparents' rights or even custody. While I know none of what she said is true, I was still concerned, so we sent her an official letter about it. My father has recently moved out of their home permanently, telling her that he could not accept her tormenting her own child. My brother and his wife have also agreed to travel to North Carolina with her. I realize this may appear abrupt, but I believe I underestimated how much sorrow I felt following the intervention. Afterward, my husband spoke with everyone, urging them to think seriously about what they valued, but he made it plain that we would not raise our child in a toxic environment. It's one of the several reasons I adore him, reason number 3271, to be specific. My spouse has been saddened by my mother's deception and has determined never to give her anything again. My husband and his sisters also spoke with my mother-in-law about her comment, explaining why it was unacceptable. Fortunately, she is a compassionate and caring individual who comes from a supportive family, so she took their concerns seriously. Meanwhile, my father and brother continue to apologize for any part they played in the incident. My father is still in astonishment that things have progressed to this degree, describing it as unreal. Regardless, they are completely supportive of me and have committed to assist me in fighting any bogus attempts made by my mother and sister. Update 2. I'd like to thank everyone for their beautiful messages and encouraging words. Things are both wonderful and dreadful right now, but I'm trying to remain optimistic. My brother and his wife sat down with my nephews and explained that Grandma was ill and had attempted to harm Auntie, me, and their younger cousin. They informed the boys that Grandma would no longer be a part of their lives, but assured them that she still loved them. It was a difficult topic, but the children were intelligent and understanding. They also learned that my sister is no longer a part of their life. The boys didn't appear to care since they already detested her, not only because of my circumstances, but also because she hasn't been very nice to them. My mother lost it when she found out she was being cut off and began claiming she had rights and would be able to visit her grandchildren. My father is presently looking for a permanent residence, but he will stay with us until January, primarily because my brother's mother-in-law is visiting and we have available space. He is quite sad about everything and has already contacted divorce lawyers, relocated his bank accounts, and made other required procedures. He has received innumerable emails, messages, and phone calls from my mother but has not responded to any of them, as recommended by his lawyer. In addition, the lawyer advised him not to block her for the time being. My father pondered forgiving her, but a few days after my previous post, my mother and sister showed up uninvited at my place. My sister had never visited my house, and my mother knew I didn't want her there, but she ignored my wishes. The cleaning lady, who was unaware of the circumstances, allowed them in. I observed their car as I was returning from errands. This time, I did not go inside. Instead, I contacted my relatives for assistance, and my husband's sister, who was close, arrived swiftly. She challenged them, telling them to leave or risk arrest for trespassing. They went, but I began to feel unwell. We went to the doctor, who told me that the stress was affecting my health and possibly endanger the baby. My father, along with my brother, uncle and husband, went to my parents' home to collect all of his stuff. My sister was there, yelling at my husband and accusing him of destroying her family. My father attacked my mother and sister, telling them that they had nearly murdered my kid and that he no longer wanted anything to do with them. Since then, my sister has been sending desperate messages to my brother, begging for assistance, but he refuses to intervene. I am devastated and saddened for my nephew, who is losing so much family because of his mother's behavior. However, this is the truth of the matter. Regarding my mother's threats about custody and grandparents' rights, my lawyer wrote her a letter noting that her actions were harmful to both my health and the baby's. The letter warned that continuing harassment would result in legal penalties. My brother also wrote her a letter highlighting her harassment of me. Both my mother and sister have declined therapy. While they may be mentally sick, it is evident that their actions have been consistent for a long time. I've resolved to prioritize enjoying the holidays with my supportive family, being healthy, and continuing therapy. Update 3. I received several requests for an update, so I thought I'd give a little more. First and foremost, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has left comments, notes, and suggestions. You have helped us become more cautious and prepared. Some folks wondered how we found out the baby's gender. We waited until after 20 weeks to announce due to a past loss. We had planned to announce the news when the miscarriage occurred the previous time, so we waited this time to preserve our feelings of security. Unfortunately, we were stupid to imagine that this announcement would be special for my mother. After posting, I gave the problem to my husband, who read all of the suggestions and comments. We conducted a thorough sweep of the house and, happily, discovered nothing unusual. However, we still felt insecure, so we moved to a hotel with my father. We later discovered there was a tracker on my dog's vest. My dog is small, cold, and routinely wears a vest, so we never considered checking there. We discovered the tracker when my father took him for a walk around the hotel, and my sister appeared, asking him about me and offering reconciliation. I was outraged and heartbroken, so we decided to relocate. Fortunately, we can afford it. We are renting out our old house to avoid leaving it empty, but I no longer feel at ease there. It seems destroyed and poisoned now. Unfortunately, my parents' house feels the same way, not only for me, but also for my brother, husband, father, sister-in-law, and my husband's family. We changed all of our phone numbers, purchased new equipment, and informed employers, friends, and the police about the problem. We also began individual and family therapy. Despite the fact that I have sincerely forgiven my father and brother, they are filled with remorse. We're all healing as a unit. Meanwhile, my sister and mother claim that they are not wrong and refuse to attend treatment. My father has prepared a new will. My sister's son will receive a trust fund and some inheritance, but my sister will receive only a modest sum. He is utterly finished with her. I originally felt sorry for her, but I've chosen to devote all of my energies to my daughter. My baby has arrived, and we consider ourselves really fortunate. It hasn't been the experience I expected because my mother isn't present, but many friends and family members have surprised us with their love and support. Toward the conclusion of the pregnancy, we got so careful that we tested people we didn't know by telling them I was going into labor. This approach worked, and we figured out who was still leaking information to my mother and sister. We cut them off right away, and the remainder understood once we explained our reasoning. My ex, whom my friends now refer to as Bates, began spreading false information that the kid was his, claiming we were having an affair due to my undying love for him. Fortunately, nobody believed him. My husband phoned Bates' job, outlining the situation. Long story short, Bates was suspended pending an internal review. I am almost certain he will be dismissed, as his boss has requested additional information and has apologized excessively. My mother has tried to find us, but everyone who knows where we are has stopped communicating with her. My father's lawyer issued her a letter informing her that, due to her instability, any communication would henceforth be handled through legal channels. I've recently been living with simply my husband and my father because I felt horrible about him being alone. He insists that he will be all right and that none of this is my fault, but I still feel terrible for him. He has been an excellent babysitter, feeding, and diaper changer. My nephews are still as affectionate as ever, and my father even got to see my sister's son. This occurred because my sister began producing threatening videos, claiming she would harm herself if my husband did not stop alienating her family. My father emailed her, offering to see her son, but warned that if her threats persisted, he would contact the police. Fortunately, this appears to have ended the behavior. Finally, someone claimed that I gave Bates false hope. This could not be further from the truth. I spent years feeling uneasy, hoping he would move on. After speaking up and meeting my husband, I spent a lot of time fighting with my sister over this topic. I had a really long engagement, so I married after my sister. I still love my mother and sister, but I've chosen a healthier lifestyle for myself and my family over love. During this journey, I've learned incredible loyalty, love, and compassion from those around me. Strangely, I feel fortunate that everything exploded since it revealed who actually supported me. Update 4. We formally moved into our new home, with my father moving into the guest house. After numerous discussions, both within and outside of treatment, we agreed it was best for him to remain with us while preserving our separate places. We're still renting out the old house and will determine what to do with it later. My father now sees all of his grandchildren together around 3 times per week. However, he must meet my sister's child separately since she would not allow him to take her son unless she knows where he lives. While this may appear to be a fair concern, considering her unstable behavior, we do not want her anywhere near our new house. My mother complained to the lawyers about how unfair it is that my father gets to see his grandchildren, but there is nothing she can do. About a month ago, my father made a revelation that made me anxious. He stated that he has been paying for my nephews, my sister's sons, education and babysitting, which is why she continues to allow him visitation. He felt horrible about keeping it from me and didn't want any secrets between us. I assured him everything was all right and begged him not to feel bad about it. On Mother's Day, my father received an email containing a link to an Instagram account. The account included a sorrowful video about how my mother has been abandoned by the majority of her family, and how my sister is a saint for supporting her. It was sad and irritated me, yet I forwarded it to our lawyer. My father filed for divorce in May, and the process is still underway. My mother insists he is in the wrong, but my father has informed me he would rather drink bleach than reconcile with her. I suppose that's it. For Father's Day, my brother and husband took my father out, and they had a great day. My sister attempted to create drama by posting various things online, but we stopped my father from viewing them so he could enjoy the day. They also went camping with the kids, sort of. They booked a hotel suite, pitched a tent in the middle for the elder kids, and set up a little teepee for the newborn. Moments like these remind me of how much joy my baby has given to our life. I'm overjoyed to see my spouse as the wonderful father I knew he'd be. While it is exhausting, the support we have gotten from family and friends makes me really grateful. My sisters-in-law and I now use a calendar to organize activities for the children, ensuring that they are age-appropriate and fun for them. We have also made it obvious to the children that they do not have to spend time with someone they dislike, and that their feelings are important. Right now, all the youngsters are enamored with the infant and have declared themselves her protectors. We've done small gatherings like breakfasts, and family time has become enjoyable rather than stressful. Without my sister present, the atmosphere is much lighter. I know it's horrible to say, but she constantly appeared to drain the positivity from the room. My mother-in-law, Mil, also enjoys spending time with the baby and typically stays in the guest room once a week. She has been really respectful, constantly asking gently and making it obvious that she does not want to overstep or take the infant to sleepovers. I feel heard and valued by her. Despite this, I've broken down at times because I mourn my mother, the mother I believed I had, not the one who warned me I'd be a bad mother and a cruel woman. My therapist reminds me that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and urges me to focus on the good. Speaking of positives, Bates got fired from his job. Not only that, but his reputation in his sector has been entirely destroyed, on a nuclear scale. His brother, on the other hand, was unaffected because his industry does not place a high value on reputation, and as far as I know, he is still employed. Bates gave me a 12-page, double-sided, single-spaced letter about how sad he is that I am denying him what's his, and how my husband feels so threatened by him that he had to kill him professionally since he couldn't demolish anything else. I say seems because I did not read it. My lawyer did and provided a synopsis. I also heard through the grapevine, no, I don't ask. They just tell me since they know he is tracking me, that his children's mother had moved away, and he didn't care. He reportedly stated that it was for the best. This man does not care about his children and prefers to play family with me and my baby. Unfortunately, Bates will not be homeless because his mother has already allowed him to move back in with her. I doubt he'll learn anything from this. Not the most flashy of updates, but it is what it is. Oh, and my spouse burned or donated every single object given to him by my mother or parents, with my father's permission. He claims life is too short to allow her any space, even in memories. Hi, Reddit, I haven't seen you in a long time. I have a few updates for you. First, I'd like to thank everyone for their remarks and letters. Every time I come into this account, I am greeted with largely pleasant sentiments, which I appreciate greatly. For those looking for updates, the majority of them are good, so let's get started. My parents are now divorced following numerous disputes and tantrums by my mother. She maintained the house and received a lump sum settlement, but that's all. My dad is like a new guy, and we are all overjoyed for him. A little throwback. Despite the drama, we did not fire our cleaning lady. She has been assisting my husband's family for decades, and I was quite concerned about her being out of work due to my wild family. My father spoke with her, telling her she was on paid vacation until we had a new house and asking her to wait for us if she wanted. She was overjoyed, and her family was really grateful. Through this relationship, my father met her sister, who operates a nail shop, and they are now dating. She is a nice woman with adult children, so she knows our family's dynamics. My father has made it obvious that he does not want to move in or marry again, and she is content with that because she cherishes her independence. My mother almost had a stroke when she learned about his new relationship. She continued referring to it as a late midlife crisis and accusing him of being a sugar daddy. I haven't spoken with her, but I know she's hurting financially. She was never adept at budgeting and relied on my father to limit her excessive spending. My sister is also struggling now that my father has ceased aiding her with money. He was originally prepared to continue supporting her for the sake of my nephew, but things changed when my nephew began calling my child an affair baby, claiming she wasn't with her real dad, and even pushing one of my husband's nephews at a party, claiming they weren't actually cousins. The children were perplexed and promptly informed an adult. My father attempted talking to my nephew, but he continued saying the same things. When my father told my sister about it, she remarked, "Kids always tell the truth." That was the final straw. My father cut them off financially and informed her that adjustments needed to be done before he would reconsider. She panicked and screamed, but she refused to give in. Bates is still unemployed. Ironically, his employment involved vulnerable women and stalking, so he was sacked. The organization did not want the scandal to harm them, so they fired him. Bates has sent me 2 more handwritten, rambling letters, but because he only has my lawyer's address, they will be read, filed, and dealt with by my lawyer. My lawyer is a champion. A surprising thing occurred in the supermarket shop. A random woman approached me and inquired whether my baby was Bates's child. I was speechless. She told me he has images of us on his page and blamed me for hurting such a good man. It turns out that Bates is still spreading the story that my kid is his and that I adored him. What surprised me the most was that the photo she mentioned was never made public. It was only shared once with a family group. My husband and I immediately felt there was a rat in the family. After further inquiry, we discovered that my dad's 2 sisters were giving information to my mother. My father was terribly saddened, but he had no concerns about cutting them off. My brother and his family are doing well. We've spent family vacations together, and they've also stopped communicating with my mother and sister. My sister-in-law acknowledged she was never a fan of our mother, but she kept the peace for the family. My mother-in-law stays amazing. She is thrilled to get overnight babysitting privileges. She occasionally gathers all of her grandchildren under one roof, which they like. She even had to make her social media accounts private because my mother was stalking her, which she handled beautifully. My hubby continues to be my rock. We're thinking about having another baby or adopting. It is an honor to have these chats, and I am glad every day for the support system we have. I still miss my mother, the one I thought I had. I sometimes cry when I think about the milestones I can't share with her anymore. But, at the end of the day, she is not a decent person, and my family's safety comes first. This Father's Day, my husband and father went camping. It went smoothly, with the exception of a few mosquito bites and sunburns. Life is improving, and I'm determined to focus on the good. Fiancé uses my deepest trauma to win a game, revealing a competitive obsession that ends our relationship. Original post. I don't even know how to type this or explain my thoughts right now, so I apologize if I seem scattered. I, 31 male, have been engaged to my fiancé, 29 female, Emily for the past 3 months, together for 2 years. She has been the only relationship where I felt safe enough to open up and discuss my past trauma. Many nights I have cried into her arms, and she has been there to comfort me. She goes to therapy with me and has been a rock in our relationship. I have been getting much better since I have really opened up about it and have been able to live a better and liberating life the past 2 years until last Saturday. Emily is ultra competitive not just in sports, but in life. She will do whatever it takes to win and be first. She has lost friendships, family relationships, jobs, and money. She understands this and has been trying to get better by going to therapy, stating she doesn't know why she is like this. She seemed to cool down over the summer, but she is still very competitive. Even her parents have such an idea because they were not athletes and have never pushed her to be. And her siblings are confused when this all started. I was a former college athlete and yes, I am competitive but not so much anymore. And recently my friend group has begun a monthly game night. I was on a 4-month win streak. We played board games, old video games, painting, basketball, and even football. And it was all in good fun, but Emily last month was so angry she did not win. She walked home and did not want to talk to me for at least 2 days. Before we left for game night, I asked her to please have fun, and it doesn't matter who wins. She promised she would try. As game night came to an end, Emily and I were tied with one more event. Rules are if it is man vs woman, the lady chooses the final game. She selected N64 Mario Kart. I am the king of that game, I never lose. I asked her if she really wanted to do that and called me a chicken and said she would beat me at my own game. I should have backed off, but I caved, and we raced. Now, common knowledge is let her win, and trust me, I thought about it, but she gets really angry if she thinks you let her win. Her attitude is way worse then. As we started racing, it was a tight race. She kept hitting the banana peels, but she kept catching up. The last lap she started trying to distract me by saying, "He snores when he sleeps," basic middle school insults. Then she tried bumping me to distract me, but I was locked in. I responded back, "At least I don't keep hitting the banana, love," very simple and fun. We are in the final leg of the race and that's when she snapped, "At least I didn't get saved by my own family." I froze up and dropped the controller and she passed me and won. She was jumping up and down with joy, screaming and dancing that she finally won. From what my friends told me later, that she kept that up for a good while until she saw my face, and that's when she stopped. My friends were in complete shock, asking me if that was true. I could not speak. I couldn't breathe and was fighting back all the inner demons I had swirling in my head. I simply got up and wished them a good night and started walking. I was in a trance. I didn't know where I was walking to. Emily tried calling and texting asking where I was, begging for me to call and come home. Kept saying she is sorry. Just wanted to win so badly, and don't know why I said that. I simply needed space, and I told her to please stop calling me. I don't know what to do. I love this girl and trusted her. But use that trust to win a effing video game. My friends are asking me about my past and won't leave me alone. I guess all I am asking, is there any way back from this, or is this the end? Do I dump her or try and work this out? Any advice would be very helpful. TLDR, fiancé used my childhood trauma to win a video game. Top comments. Comment 1. Man, she got serious issues. In my eyes there is no coming back from this. How could you ever trust her again? Comment 2. Dude, right? Like, what's to say she won't do it again and blame her competitive personality for it? Comment 3. She used your biggest, deepest wound, one that she only knew about because you trusted her, to win a dumb game. She exposed your biggest, deepest wound to other people without your consent. There is no coming back from this. You shouldn't want to come back from this. How will you ever be able to trust her with anything again? She has shown you who she truly is. You deserve better. I am very sorry you had this experience. I hope you are okay. Edit. I want to thank everyone for their comments and DMs. I have been reading all of them for the past 3 hours. I guess I knew this was the end of this relationship, but after spending 2 years with someone and had strong feelings and trust, I wanted to see if a majority of people could see something else that I didn't that could save it. And reading the comments, I guess I overlooked those massive red flags that Emily had. I decided to sit down with my friend group tonight and tell them my past. It will be difficult and will text Emily tonight and meet with her tomorrow. I will update tomorrow after that conversation. OOP updated same post to our Notchka January 10th, 2025, 2 days later. Update. Hey all, I want to thank everyone again for all the support. It helped me clear up my head and really reflect on the past few months with Emily and finally see the red flags I ignored or didn't press hard enough on. First of all, I need to get this off my chest. From ages 11 through 13 I was SA by my aunt. She would come over to babysit and she would do the deeds and have me do stuff to her. She would threaten me if I ever spoke out. I tried to tell my parents if she could not babysit, but my mother told me that her sister absolutely loves you and wants to spend time with you since she can't have children. If it wasn't for my dad forgetting his wallet one night, I believe she wouldn't have been caught. My mom went mental and did not believe any of it and went on the campaign tour around town saying she is 100% innocent and I am just confused. My dad went into the bottle and tried to enter the shadow realm because he couldn't forgive himself for missing the signs. My mom then threatened me to make an announcement that her sister is not a predator and then attacked me. My dad divorced my mom and she and my aunt moved elsewhere. All these years later she truly believes her sister didn't do the deeds. My dad and I are okay. He does not want to be around me much because of the guilt. Second, I met with my friends and told them my story and they all apologized and promised to help protect me in the future with relationships. They told me what happened after the event. Emily was trying to defend herself by claiming I didn't mean to say it. He took it the wrong way. I just needed to win this? I love him and didn't mean it? She has been calling all of them begging for them to please help her win me back and she will do whatever it takes, and see anyone to help her with her condition. Meeting today with Emily. My friends invited her over and would sit in the other room while we talked. Emily was unhinged and came flying into the house trying to hug me, but my friends held her back and told her to just sit. I asked her why she said what she said. Emily. I don't know, I just needed to win so badly. I followed up with why she needed to win this one. Emily. Because, it was your best game and, I don't know, I just needed to win. I again asked why she needed to win. What was the importance of winning? Emily through her tears. I don't know, I needed to win. She kept repeating the same line over and over, so I asked if she had planned on using my trauma against me and if that is why she chose Mario Kart. I have never seen someone go white so fast. Emily just looked at me and put her hands in her face and blurted out, I can't stand not winning and I knew you would get distracted, and I could win and finally feel great. Because these past 4 months I've been so depressed from feeling like a loser and knew I could win with this plan. I was in shock and couldn't believe she said that. I realized that some of the commenters were right. She had this planned. I am still trying to gain control of my thoughts on this one. You had this planned? I asked Emily. Yes. I didn't think about what would happen after, and when I saw your face, I knew I messed up. Please, I want to get help and will do anything, please don't end this. I asked if this was another competition in her head to win me back. No, I mean in a way yes, but not like that. So if you win me back, you'll feel better that you won. I told her I can't trust her anymore. What if we had kids? Will you see them as competition? If your friends are being flirted with, will you try and get more attention for the win? What if I am simply doing something and you blurt that out again to win? She had to be escorted out by my friends and was told by one of them I should get a restraining order because her mentality of losing you may break her mind and do whatever it takes to win me back. So again, thank you everyone for all the comments. I am going to get more help and take a break from dating until I find someone who I can trust 100%, and now my friends will be on extra guard for any Emily sightings and future dating red flags.